Chapter 756. At night, the four of them went to bed on time. Mu Qilian lay on the bed, worried and unable to sleep. Even though he was on the balcony and Zhong Yu was at the door, if anything happened, it would be the other party who got into trouble first. Mu Qilian still felt worried. Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing slept in the same direction, their heads facing each other. Although the bed was new, it was still somewhat unbearable. Song Yanqing actually couldn't sleep. He only said softly to Qiao Jin, "I actually have a guess, but I don't know if it's right." Qiao Jin said, "What?" Song Yanqing said, "Since it's a rule, it might be hidden in a place that conforms to the rules." "What place in the school has rules?" "The school rules. When I was studying in the past, the school rules were set up in the school. It's just that if you don't pay attention, basically no one will pay attention to the school rules." Qiao Jin thought for a moment. "That makes sense." Song Yanqing said, "After the exam tomorrow, let's go take a look." Qiao Jin nodded. "Okay." The two of them were talking quietly. They didn't know when it started to quiet down outside. It was so quiet that not a single sound could be heard. It was as if those students didn't exist. It was unknown how dark the sky was, but the lights in the dormitory were also turned off. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps could be heard coming from the corridor outside. One sound, one sound. It was soft, but there was a different feeling to it. It seemed to be walking very slowly, step by step. It walked and stopped. In the darkness, Song Yanqing raised one hand and pointed at Qiao Jin's shoulder. Qiao Jin understood and reached out his hand to his head, holding Song Yanqing's hand. The two of them were actually not afraid. They just wanted to watch Zhong Yu and Muzilian. The footsteps were getting closer and louder. They didn't know if it was an illusion, but Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing could almost feel a strange breathing sound. Did ghosts breathe? They didn't know, but anything that was still moving around outside was definitely not normal. Suddenly, something walked to the side of the door and pushed it open. Bang! The iron hook that he took from Sir System came in handy. It blocked the door and prevented the other party from pushing it open. His movements were very subtle. If a person was asleep, it would be very difficult to hear. But Song Yanqing and Qiao Jin heard it clearly. The ghost outside was now pushing on their door. The door lock of room 444 was broken. He was indeed the chosen one. Not being pushed, the other party was somewhat flustered and exasperated. This time, his movements were a little more forceful, and he pushed again. The hook with the lock did its job. Seeing that it still wouldn't budge, the ghost student changed his method and started to knock on the door. The sudden sound in the middle of the night was frightening. The darkness could amplify one's senses, and this sound was too stimulating. But in this dormitory, no one was normal. Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing didn't react at all. Song Yanqing even squeezed Qiao Jin's palm in a comforting manner. Qiao Jin wanted to say that he didn't care at all. It would be fine even if it came in. Knock knock knock, there were 3 more knocks on the door, and they could even hear a little strange breathing sound. Hua hua, it sounded like some kind of monster's hoarse cry. At this moment, Muzilian's light snoring suddenly sounded in the dormitory. The 3 of them, she was wondering why Muzilian wasn't afraid and could even fall asleep. The ghost probably heard it too. The knocking stopped and it left. Before it left, it was even flustered and exasperated. Chapter 757. He didn't know how the night passed, but when Muzilian woke up in the morning, he felt refreshed. He was woken up by the rules. The exam is about to start. Please arrive at the exam hall within an hour. Please head to the cafeteria for breakfast. Muzilian sat up and stretched lazily. He yawned. Ah, I remember I was quite scared last night. I don't know when I fell asleep. Did the ghost knock on the door? We didn't win the prize, right? Song Yanqing and Zhong Yu turned around and looked at him with a complicated expression. Qiao Jin was very direct. It did. You were asleep and didn't hear it. Muzilian trembled. So you heard it. Qiao Jin, it's fine as long as it doesn't react. Our door lock was broken yesterday. It should have been able to push the door open, but it didn't open the door when you asked Uncle for the lock. Muzilian was instantly filled with pride. I told you. He was so smart that he wouldn't fall for it. There was one more thing to do after waking up, and that was to wash up. Thankfully, the dormitory had prepared some basic necessities. Even though it was very simple, it was enough to wash up. This time, they headed to the cafeteria for breakfast. On the way, the students from the other exam halls came out. Qiao Jin counted, and there was not a single person missing. She raised her eyebrows. It seemed that they were the lucky ones who were picked last night. Because they didn't open the door, they avoided a disaster. However, many of them had dark circles under their eyes, and they were still a little scared. The psychological torture from the night before was not good. However, it was clear that if the exam ended today, the lucky ones wouldn't be so lucky. This morning, the breakfast in the cafeteria was more normal. There were steamed buns and a bowl of porridge. At least they could eat, so they couldn't be so picky. After breakfast, there was another delay. It was about time to continue the exam. Today's monitoring teacher was the same one they saw yesterday morning. When she saw Song Yanqing, she looked very happy and handed out the papers. Qiao Jin looked at today's questions and was surprised. The questions had changed. Which door did the ghost student knock on last night? 25 points. How many times did the ghost student knock on the door? 25 points. The ghost student needed to take away one person every night. It didn't complete its mission yesterday and was already angry, so it swore that it would take away twice as many people tonight. Then how many people should it take away? 50 points. Very easy to answer. However, the third question was an obvious trap. Furthermore, it had the highest score. If he answered this question incorrectly, it would basically be GG. Ghost students take one every night. It failed last night, vowed to double tonight. If he had only taken away the number of people that night, then there wouldn't have been an extra question. Therefore, for the second night, it would definitely include the people from the first night. In other words, it would take away 2 people tonight, and double that would be 4 people. His appetite was really big. Qiao Jin clicked his tongue and quickly filled in the 3 questions. All 3 questions were correct, full marks. The questions were actually not difficult. She turned her head and saw that the teacher was indeed walking over with a smile. He even said, "Today's questions are easy. There are no red flowers for full marks." Qiao Jin, how could there be such a difference in treatment? Song Yanqing also answered the question correctly and also got full marks. He stood up and gave Qiao Jin a look. The 2 of them walked out of the classroom together. Their goal was the school rules column. Chapter 758. Last night, the 2 of them had already made their goal very clear. They had indeed not searched the school rule board. The most obvious one was at the school gate. They walked over, and when they got close, their guess was confirmed. Rows and rows of words appeared and disappeared on the school rules column. They were all about what they had been through. Muzilian got the lock from the guard and locked the broken door of dormitory 444. Ghost students can't enter. It's in accordance with the rules. When Song Yanqing saw this sentence, he raised his eyebrows slightly and smiled. It's indeed here. Xiao Jin tapped his chin. It's so easy to stay here. It's out of my expectations. However, the array point wasn't hard to find. The hard part was how to subdue it. When they were talking, the row of black words suddenly disappeared and was replaced by a new one. Xiao Jin used the array to revive. Every month, he will receive karmic backlash for a year. It's in accordance with the rules. Xiao Jin, Song Yanqing, they looked at each other. Song Yanqing whispered, a year. Xiao Jin. Yes. The rules were indeed targeting her. The matter that she had been hiding for a while was now completely exposed in front of the rules. Song Yanqing thought for a while and said, you said the rules can't be used. So now it's establishing the rules on its own. Xiao Jin nodded. This is its world. Everything is arranged by it. Song Yanqing, can you subdue the rules? Xiao Jin, I have to try. To subdue this kind of array point, it would take some effort. However, just as Xiao Jin was about to make a move, the black words on the school rules board disappeared and turned into a sentence. Xiao Jin has karma. Subduing the rules. It's not in accordance with the rules. Xiao Jin, she frowned slightly. This was the first time she had seen an array point. She didn't expect it to be so tricky. Couldn't it be subdued with karma? Then, she watched as the black words slowly disappeared. Xiao Jin used the ultimate benevolent spirit seed to offset the rules. He can subdue the rules. Xiao Jin, very good, from the moment he came in until now, everything had been arranged clearly. Xiao Jin sneered, so you want Su Rong's spirit seed. Song Yanqing rubbed his chin. So, he wants you to use something in exchange. It's a formation point. Does it have its own consciousness? Xiao Jin said, looking at what it's doing, you should know that it does have consciousness. The devouring array points on her body also had their own consciousness, but they were controlled by her. There was not much difference whether they had their own consciousness or not. The spirit seed was used to feed the array points to offset karma. It was clear that the rules wanted her to do the exchange. Xiao Jin lowered his head and pondered for a moment. Forget it. Su Rong's spirit seed could be kept to offset her karma. It was given to her by Su Rong. She didn't think of using it back then, but now that there were rules, she should use it. There were still some things that had other uses even now. Otherwise, she really couldn't think of why they came to the mountain of rules. She took out Su Rong's spirit seed and placed it on the school rules column. The school rules column absorbed Xiao Jin's spirit seed and turned into a bunch of light spots. Like countless ordinary array points, it returned to Xiao Jin's body. Along with Xiao Jin's item, there was a pop sound, and this vast world was like a bubble, disappearing with a single blow. The surrounding space also shook. At this moment, a demon suddenly tore through space and stretched out his arm, wanting to grab Song Yanqing. Chapter 759. Things happened so suddenly that even Xiao Jin didn't expect that the demon would dare to tear space directly. She turned her head in an instant, and Song Yanqing's reaction was not slow either. His pupils sank, and he used the ability of a spirit master to resist the demon. This demon was a demon of the Rakshasa realm. The two worlds were not connected, but the rules formed a space of their own. You could say that this world was fake, but at the same time, it was also real. It gave the demon of the Rakshasa realm a chance to catch Song Yanqing when the space was broken. It seemed to want to take him back to the Rakshasa realm. Xiao Jin reached out and grabbed Song Yanqing's palm in an instant. A red light flashed in her eyes, and a huge purple butterfly suddenly appeared. At the moment when the space was about to shatter, several red lines penetrated the demon that suddenly appeared. The demon let out a painful howl, and with Song Yanqing's strong resistance, it had no choice but to give up directly. Its red eyes stared fiercely at Xiao Jin. The space was broken, the crack disappeared, and with a pop, everything returned to its original place. Song Yanqing suddenly hissed. Just now, the demon suddenly grabbed his shoulder. The other party's boned claws went deep into his bone marrow and scratched a wound on his shoulder. Now, it was emitting a wisp of black gas. She didn't have time to look at the people who reappeared in the Mountain of Law in a daze. She only grabbed Song Yanqing and instantly returned to the Mu family in the imperial capital. Song Yanqing's face was a little pale. He only had a human body, how could he withstand the attack of the demon of the Rakshasa realm? His originally white clothes were torn by the claw. Xiao Jin glanced at him and suddenly said, "Endure it." Then, she set up several arrays on Song Yanqing's body. They were all healing arrays, but the process was a little painful. The wound on his shoulder that was emitting black gas quickly stopped acting strange, but Song Yanqing felt like ants were crawling on his shoulder. The pain and itch were unbearable. He just frowned and didn't say a word. Only a thin layer of sweat oozed from his forehead, somewhat like the sick and weak state from a while ago. He even asked, "Can the Rakshasa realm cross space?" Xiao Jin said, "No." She stopped Song Yanqing's injury. Just now, the rules of space were broken. When I was doing the questions, I was hinted that the Rakshasa world is connected to this world. But I didn't expect that the Rakshasa realm would want to capture you even at this kind of time. Xiao Jin looked at Song Yanqing, his eyes dark. "I have never seen such a situation. Why would Rakshasa realm think of ways to capture you? Even if you're a spiritualist, this doesn't make sense. Even the devils of the Rakshasa realm would have to pay a huge price to capture a person across space." This price was equivalent to Xiao Jin's heaven-defying resurrection. The two worlds were not connected in the first place. Forcefully coming over was going against the will of the heavens. It shouldn't be. Song Yanqing shouldn't be so obsessed with them. Song Yanqing's face was strangely pale. "When I was captured, I saw something." Xiao Jin was a little puzzled. "What did you see?" Song Yanqing looked at her. His eyes that were originally shining with starlight seemed to dim a little at this moment. "I was captured by them in that world." "In that world, not in this world." Xiao Jin suddenly paused. Song Yanqing lowered his eyes again. His pale cheeks looked fragile at this moment, but it was especially bewitching. "There's something I haven't told you." Xiao Jin paused, his voice very soft. "What is it?" Song Yanqing said, "I often dream. In the dream, I am in the Rakshasa realm." Chapter 760. Once this sentence came out, there was a lot of information. Xiao Jin was a little confused. She was an array master, but it had always been fate that the human world and the Rakshasa world would not interfere with each other. Humans could not cross over to the Rakshasa world, so why did Song Yanqing have this kind of dream? She looked at Song Yanqing with a puzzled expression. Song Yanqing laughed bitterly. "So sometimes I worry if I'm a demon from the Rakshasa world." "That's impossible." Xiao Jin shook her head. "Demons can't cross over. Do you remember what I said? If I get the spatial array point, I can go to the Rakshasa world, as long as I pay the price." She looked at Song Yanqing and suddenly thought of something. When a spirit master of speech reaches that level, you can also cross over, but your current strength is far from enough. As soon as she said this, Song Yanqing's face suddenly became paler and paler, then his head tilted and he fainted in Xiao Jin's arms. Xiao Jin, being directly injured by a demon is indeed serious. She helped Song Yanqing to the bed, looked at his frowning brows as he fainted, and suddenly thought of something. She summoned the rule matrix point. Different from the swallowing butterfly, the rule matrix point was a huge disk. It appeared in the sky, and all kinds of things kept appearing on the disk. If one looked carefully, they could see that there was time, the 5 elements, and all kinds of things. Everything that existed in this world was an existence that conformed to the rules. The rule matrix point changed the rules, but at the same time, it could also use this characteristic to know a lot of things. It was like answering questions in school. In addition to changing the rules, it could also confirm the existence of established rules. Just like how humans could die, then it could directly set the rule that humans could die. Then it would respond that it conformed to the rules, meaning that humans could indeed die. Because this was an existing rule, there would be no price. Then, by modifying this basic condition, one could forcefully change the rules. For example, changing the rule that humans could die to humans could not die, but that price was not something the whole world could bear. Song Yanqing's dream, coupled with her own amnesia, she vaguely felt that there was a huge misunderstanding behind it. Perhaps it wasn't that she didn't care, but that something was forcing her not to think about it. Inside the law array, she asked a question. Song Yanqing is the strongest spiritualist. This was a very risky question. If it was true, it would prove that the rules were in place and she would not have to pay any price. If it didn't work, she definitely couldn't afford to pay the price. They would respond that she didn't comply with the rules. The disk rotated and gave a response after 3 seconds. A huge line of words appeared in the middle of the disk. Conforms to the rules, Qiao Jin. She lowered her eyelashes. She was right. Song Yanqing was the strongest spirit speaker, so this question matched the one in her memory. In this era, it was impossible for a spiritual reader to surpass the era of 10,000 years ago. In that era, there were the strongest wizards, the strongest array masters, and the strongest spiritual readers. If one were to say that Song Yanqing was the strongest spirit speaker, then this was proof. He did come from the past. She couldn't be sure if he was from 10,000 years ago, but at least the title of being the strongest was not something he could bear now. There was also another possibility, and that was that the world's strongest spirit speaker was already dead, and Song Yanqing, who was still alive, was the strongest. Chapter 761. She retracted the rule array, looked at Song Yanqing on the bed, and touched his forehead. It was very hot. He seemed to have a fever. His expression didn't look too good now. She couldn't directly appear downstairs now. Otherwise, how could she explain the fact that she suddenly came back and didn't enter through the door? Her family would think that it was too expensive. At the same time, Song Yanqing, who was sleeping, didn't feel good either. He didn't know where he was. He could only vaguely hear the roars. You can't escape. You'll always come back here. This is your choice. Those voices were like nightmares that he would never be able to forget for the rest of his life. At the same time, there was a heart-wrenching pain. It was as if his body had been torn into countless pieces and was quickly reassembling. That kind of pain was enough to make people lose all rationality. He experienced it over and over again, trying to escape this cage. Suddenly, he opened his eyes. All the illusions disappeared. That extreme pain seemed to have a lingering effect, as if it was gradually disappearing. He turned his head and looked around. He was in his own home. He just touched his forehead, and the sweat that seeped out was enough to wet him. Starlight once again lit up in his pitch-black pupils. However, after looking around, it quickly dimmed again. He thought that Qiao Jin would be here. Just as he was thinking this, Ah Pei's voice came from below. Hey, Miss Qiao, when did you and young master come back? Qiao Jin's voice was a little impatient. I teleported back. Ah Pei, you seem to be teasing me. Hearing Qiao Jin's voice, his starlight lit up again. He coughed slightly and looked down to find that his clothes had been changed. It was just that they were wet now. It seemed that he had to take a shower and change again. Xiao Jin walked up and saw that Song Yanqing was awake. He was a little surprised. "You're awake." He saw the sweat on Song Yanqing's forehead. "You had a fever when you were sleeping. Are you still having a fever?" As he spoke, he touched Song Yanqing's forehead. "Fever." He glanced at his shoulder. There was no wound there. He had just woken up. His voice was low and hoarse. "When did we come back?" "Last night." She whispered to Song Yanqing, "I brought you back to the Mu family first." It wasn't easy to explain to Fei Fei. Qi Lian called to ask me, and Fei Fei called me. I told her that I was with you. No matter how stupid Muzilian was, it was impossible for him to tell Qiao Fei and the others about the law world, so he just vaguely reported that he was safe. Song Yanqing smiled and felt uncomfortable with his wet and sticky body, so he said, "I'm going to take a shower. Wait for me for a while." Xiao Ji nodded. "Go ahead." When Song Yanqing got up to take a shower, he saw the speechless Atong. He chuckled and asked, "What's wrong?" Zai shook his head. "No." She felt that young master and Miss Chiao had been appearing and disappearing mysteriously recently. He didn't know how the two of them came back last night. However, he had always known that Miss Chiao was a little mysterious to begin with and that she had some special abilities. Alas, ordinary people shouldn't pry into the world of the big shots. Song Yanqing glanced at him and went to take a shower. Xiao Jin sat on the sofa and looked at his phone. They had only stayed in the law world for 2 days. After 2 days, the world disappeared after they came out. Everyone remembered it, but they couldn't say anything about it. Because it didn't conform to the law and didn't have the ability to change it, it would be destroyed. Chapter 762. This time, she only got the rule array points from the Mountain of Law. She obviously went there with Song Yanqing. In the beginning, the clue of the fan was also found by Song Yanqing. He didn't get anything, but was almost caught by the demons of the Rakshasa realm. Based on what she already knew, Xiao Jin now has every reason to believe that her amnesia was probably tied to Song Yanqing. They might have known each other for a long time. She remembered the elegant greeting in the cave again, "Are you cold?" It was Song Yanqing's voice, but it seemed to be far away. She sat on the sofa in a daze, and Dan went downstairs to continue to stand guard. After a while, Song Yanqing came out of the bathroom. He changed into a set of black pajamas, probably not planning to go out. His temperament was gentle and modest, and he was handsome. Usually, he looked at people with a trace of alienation, but at this moment, looking at Xiao Jin, it was as if he gave all his gentleness to Xiao Jin. This man with gentle eyebrows was enough to soften any cold heart. He smiled and looked at Xiao Jin. "When I woke up, you weren't there. I thought you went back. If you didn't wake up, why would I go back?" Xiao Jin whispered, "I have to see you wake up before I can rest assured. I have never seen anyone hurt by the demons of the Rakshasa realm before, so I'm not sure." Song Yanqing thought of the things in the dream, pursed his lips, but in the end, he didn't say it. If he said it now, it would only make Xiao Jin puzzled. After he figured out some things, he would know why. It would probably take a while, he thought, maybe soon. Seeing that Song Yanqing had recovered, Xiao Jin said, "I'll go back when you wake up. She hasn't been to school for several days." Song Yanqing looked at her and nodded, "Okay, I'll ask Dan to send you." Xiao Jin said, "Okay, I'll come back at night. I'll make sure that you're fine for the next few days before I officially go back to school." Hearing Xiao Jin's words, Song Yanqing felt his heart soften even more. She was clearly cold and indifferent, seemingly without any feelings, but she knew how to accurately capture his heart. He smiled gently. Okay. Zhang sent Xiao Jin to school. On the way, he did not dare to ask. Xiao Jin looked at the class schedule and found that there were no classes in the morning. He turned around and went to Meng Qingyu's place. She did not forget that Imo Zhang's female corpse was still there. Although he had been resurrected, Meng Qingyu had to go to school, and Yang Qiulu had to take care of He Yao's child. No matter how she looked at it, leaving Imo Jiang alone didn't seem too safe. When Xiao Jin arrived at Meng Qingyu's house, he didn't use his key. The moment he opened the door, he saw Imo Jiang wearing a tank top and shorts. He was hugging a bag of chips and sitting on the sofa with his legs bent as he watched TV. Her long hair was straightened and draped over her body. Seeing Xiao Jin come, Imo Jiang looked over indifferently, not surprised at all. Xiao Jin said, "You familiarize yourself with modern life very quickly." Xiao Jin at least had memories of the modern world, but Imo Jiang had to learn everything from scratch. Judging from her clothes, she had accepted the pop culture of this world quite readily. Imo Jiang smiled. Of course. Her beauty was out of this world. She was a real stunner. After answering, she suddenly said, "Qingyu said that my expenses are all on you. Can I buy things? I want to buy a car. The model I like costs about a few million." Xiao Jin said decisively, "I can't afford to raise you. Find someone else." Imo Jiang, in the face of money, Xiao Jin chose to retreat. Chapter 763. Imo Jiang clicked his tongue. "If I want to earn money, how can I do it?" Xiao Jin looked at Imo Jiang from head to toe. "Are you serious? I'm earning money from fortune-telling, basically to support you guys. But since you're so good at spending money, why don't you join the entertainment industry?" Xiao Jin said very calmly, "You're pretty, you'll become popular immediately. Celebrities can earn tens of millions from endorsements. If you become popular, you can do it too." "You're talking about this?" Imo Jiang pointed at the characters on the television. Xiao Jin nodded. Imo Jiang immediately said happily, "Okay, how can I become a celebrity?" "Xiao Jin, I'll ask a friend for you." Xiao Jin sent Fan Jin a WeChat message. Fan Jin used to be a celebrity. Xiao Junmin was done for in the entertainment industry, so she didn't look for her. "Jin, I have a friend who wants to become a celebrity. How can I get her to do it?" Fan Jin, "Oh. It's not that easy to become a celebrity. Now, you're just signing up to quickly debut as an idol. Is your friend pretty? Is she from an acting school? How old is she? Fan Jin, can you show me her photo? Did Big Boss's friend need to ask me how to become a celebrity?" Xiao Jin felt that a person like Big Boss should have countless channels. Xiao Jin took a photo of Imo Jiang. She casually chose an angle, but Imo Jiang was indescribably beautiful in the camera. She was so beautiful that one couldn't look away. Xiao Jin sent the photo to Fan Jin. "Fan Jin. Fan Jin, what a stunner." Her exclamation showed that even though she had been in the entertainment industry for many years and had seen countless beauties, she was still impressed by Imo Jiang's beauty. "Fan Jin, I'll help you find a channel. I should be able to get in touch with a few people in the production team. Let her audition for the actors. She'll definitely pass." She was such a beautiful woman. Even the managers of big companies would be tempted. That was because she had a face that could make a fire. It was Jin Jinyo. "Okay, thank you. I'll pay you when she becomes popular." "Fan Jin, there's no need for that, as long as I can help you." "Fan Jin, does your friend like to be a celebrity? It's Jean Jinyo, not really. It's mainly because I'm supporting her now, but she wants to buy a car that costs millions. I can't do anything about it. I can only let her earn her own living. Fan Jean. Black question mark. A big shot was raising her. The boss is canary. But which big shot couldn't afford to raise a canary? Fan Jean was confused about the relationship between Xiao Jin and Mo Jiang. However, she was reliable in her work. She sent over a few auditions and recommended an agent. He was Fan Jin's manager in the past and was quite reliable. Whether or not he wanted to practice was up to Mo Jiang. Xiao Jin sent all the information to Mo Jiang. You have to learn how to earn your own living. I've given you the channels. Mo Jiang nodded. I won't forget you when I become popular. Xiao Jin, okay, then Yang Qiulu and Meng Qingyu will depend on you to raise them. Mo Jiang, okay. Talking to Mo Jiang was very straightforward. Xiao Jin was very satisfied. After meeting Mo Jiang, she returned to the school that she hadn't been to for a long time. It was quite strange to see the school bell reappear. After a while, Xiao Jin saw that Mo Jiang had created a WeChat group. Putting aside the fact that she had become so proficient in the past 2 days, just the fact that she had created a group with Meng Qingyu and Yang Qiulu showed that she was extremely confident. Mo Jiang, I've discussed it with her. I'll become a celebrity. When I become popular, I'll take care of you in the future. She can't afford to raise you. Yang Qiulu. Meng Qingyu, black question mark, S life has become so difficult. Xiao Jin. Chapter 764. Xiao Jin did not intend to tell her about the cruel fact that Mo Jiang had single-handedly lowered the cost of living. Mo Jiang's matter was left to her to deal with. Although she had lost her memory, she was still a formation master. With the channel provided by Xiao Jin, she did not need any additional help to solve everything. She returned to school as usual. In the dormitory, Xue Jingyi was still busy with his studies. Although Tong Yingxin was a demon, she was already in her 3rd year. For the sake of her future, she had to start working. Gradually, she did not return to the dormitory. At least, most of the time, she would not bump into each other. In addition, she had been in the Song family for the past few days. After confirming that Song Yanqing would not have any more problems, she returned to the Mu family. The peaceful days only lasted until Xiao Jin returned to the Mu family. She received a piece of unexpected news. Muzilian was expelled from the army. That's right, he was expelled. They could not explain the incident at the Mountain of Rules clearly. Even if they said it, they did not complete the task. In fact, they had already told the army. However, because of the warning of the Mountain of Rules, they could not say anything specific. The army knew about the existence of the spiritual reader world. They thought that they had encountered a spiritual reader world. After weighing the pros and cons, they still decided to expel them. They were allowed to go home because they were afraid of causing trouble in the future. After all, they already knew that some things in this world were very inconceivable. On the surface, this was the case. However, the Mu family did not know. When Qiao Fei heard that Muzilian was actually expelled from the army, he was stunned on the spot. Muzilian returned home on Friday afternoon. When Xiao Jin returned home, she could still vaguely hear Muzilian's screams. When she entered the living room, she saw Muzilian kneeling on the sofa with his ears pinched. Qiao Fei, who was next to him, hit him with a feather duster and scolded, look at you, your father spent so much effort to find connections to get you into the army. How could you still be expelled? Why are you so useless? You can't even manage the army now. You just want to come home and piss me off. I didn't. Muchi tugged at his ear and cried out, I have my own difficulties, I can't say it. Can you stop hitting me? Didn't I get fired? When I come back, I'll study hard. Can't I just study hard? Ah. Seeing that Xiao Jin had returned, Muzilian's expression became even more embarrassed. He pointed at Xiao Jin and said, It's all because of you. Xiao Fei waved the feather duster again and scolded, You were expelled from the army and you still blame your sister. You really can't find a reason to slander others. If you don't punish you, you won't grow up. Mu Xiangshan sat calmly in the midst of the commotion. He was still holding a purple clay teapot and leisurely brewing tea. Clearly, he was not affected by the commotion in the living room. Xiao Jin entered the room and saw the situation. He was a little surprised. Qi Lian was fired. Yes. Xiao Fei was furious. I just received a call today. He came back and said that he didn't complete the mission assigned to him by the army. It was seen as a major violation of discipline. The nature of the violation was vile and he was fired. Xiao Jin, it seemed like it was because of the incident at Mountain of Rules. However, the army wouldn't fire Muzilian because of such a small matter. This was because they should also know that the spirit group existed in this world. Xiao Jin said gently, Fei Fei, don't be like this. Maybe Qi Lian has his reasons. Muzilian immediately looked at Xiao Fei. Listen to this, even your daughter can speak human language. Pa, another feather duster hit Muzilian on the back and he began to wail like a ghost again. Chapter 765. After such a long time, Muzilian was a little tanned. It seemed like he had been trained. Xiao Fei hit him a few times, but in the end, he couldn't do anything. Seeing Mu Qi's aggrieved expression, he glared at him and threw away the feather duster. He sat at the side and impolitely drank the tea that the old man had just brewed. Mu Xiangshan was dissatisfied. Can't you enjoy drinking tea? Who drinks like you? Are you a cow chewing on peonies? Xiao Fei was not afraid of him now. He even said, You just watched me teach your grandson a lesson. He made such a big mistake. Why don't you discipline him? How can I discipline him? Mu Xiangshan rolled his eyes. He's not my son. I can't even discipline my own son. How can I discipline someone else's son? I don't have the qualifications. His words were full of innuendo and sarcasm. It was a classic example of sarcasm. Xiao Fei, Mu Qilian looked at him and stammered, Grandpa. Mu Xiangshan, Grandpa can't save you. Xiao Jin walked over and asked, Why were you fired? Muzilian, you still don't know why I was fired. Xiao Fei raised his hand again. Why are you still blaming your sister? Muzilian hurriedly begged for mercy. I'm just talking nonsense. Xiao Jin clicked his tongue. Ungrateful. Muzilian. Why are you using idioms like that? He was able to get out of Rule Mountain because of his intelligence. When your brother comes back, he will teach you a lesson. Then there's Shinming. Xiao Jin threw this sentence and went upstairs first. Muzilian, he knew that this family was so cold to him. His heart turned cold. He should stay outside for a while. Damn it, he had no money. Before he left, he froze all his cards to prevent any accidents. Only Xiao Fei gave him pocket money every month. After all, how much money could he spend in the army? That little bit of pocket money was not enough for him to survive outside for more than 3 days. He could only return. Later on, Muzichu also came back from school. He was not surprised to see Muzilian. After all, he was his brother. If there was anything wrong, Muzilian would call him first. He even hinted at the reason, but he could not say it out loud. He wanted to let Musichu know that he had his reasons for being expelled. Mu Jinming was different. When he saw that Musilian was fired, he pretended that he didn't do anything. But when he came back, he poked at Musilian's heart. "What's the point of raising you?" Mu Xiangshan said leisurely from the side, "Why don't we find a daughter and marry him off earlier?" Musilian. Chao Fei, which girl would want him? Don't harm him. Mu Jinming, yes. Musilian. He didn't want to live anymore. He wanted to jump out of his big glass house right now. There was no use in criticizing and educating him. After all, he was back and had been expelled. Then, Musilian could only go to school like before. No one thought of this, not even Musilian himself. After dinner, he couldn't help but knock on Qiao Jin's door. When Qiao Jin opened the door, Musilian was standing outside. He looked around sneakily and went into Qiao Jin's room. Let's talk, let's talk." Qiao Jin knew what he wanted to say. He stepped aside and let him in. This was the first time Musilian entered Qiao Jin's room. He looked around and said, "It must be Mom's taste." Chapter 766. Only Qiao Fei would like this kind of thing. Then he thought that Qiao Jin would like it too. Qiao Jin said, "If you have something to ask it quickly." Musilian looked at Qiao Jin suspiciously. "How did you come back?" He and Qiao Jin did not enter the mountain of regularity from the same place, so when they came out, there were only him and Zhongyu, and a lot of bones. At that time, he was almost scared to death. When he called back, he only knew that Qiao Jin was in the Song family. Now that he was back, some things were easy to ask. "I came back the same way you came back." Qiao Jin raised his eyebrows. "Do you still need to ask these questions?" Musilian was a little suspicious. "Then why did you enter it? What kind of world is that?" "I remember that the exam was not over yet." "How did we come out?" He said that it was a dream, but he remembered it clearly, so it was definitely not a dream. But if it was not a dream, it was a miracle that Musilian did not go crazy in the face of such anti-socialist and unscientific things. "We came out like that, and went in like that." "Musilian, do I look like I have a low IQ?" He still did not believe it. "It's fine if you go in, but why can even Brother Yanqing go in? And you know that world very well." "After I came out, I read a lot of novels. I'm sure that we have entered the legendary Infinite Flow world. It's very likely that we will go in to do a task next time." "Did you go in long ago?" Qiao Jin, she did not know what the Infinite Flow was, but she knew that Musilian was simply thinking too much. "You're wrong. That world is not something you can enter as you wish. It will not exist in the future. There were not many array points that had the ability to create a world, especially without the ability of an array master. There were even fewer array points that could create a world alone. Such array points were extremely rare. The rules were one of them, and the others might exist all over the world. In short, it was not something that humans should take." Musilian learned to get to the point. "So you know more than me. Qiao Jin, tell me the truth. Did your skull open when you committed suicide?" He pointed his finger at Qiao Jin and pointed up and down. "I said that after you woke up after committing suicide, you still changed a little. No matter what, your brain can't become abnormal, right?" Qiao Jin, so you were indeed hiding something from us. Now that I've seen through you, it's definitely not your first time knowing so much after entering that world. Qiao Jin, what exactly do you do? If you don't make it clear today, I... Qiao Jin looked at him coldly. What do you want? Go and tell Feifei. Musilian. Although he did not receive a clear warning when he came out of that world, he had a feeling that he could not say anything about it. Otherwise, he would have already spread it around the world. He wanted to let all humans know that this world was abnormal. Fortunately, his mouth was sealed. Otherwise, this loudspeaker would be able to spread it around the world. Now that he was rebuked by Xiao Jin, he was still a little unconvinced. Just you wait. Sooner or later, I will expose your true colors. Xiao Jin suddenly said, you don't have to expose me now. Let me take you to see it. Muzillion, huh? Before he could react, he saw Xiao Jin grab his shoulder. The next second, the world spun. Chapter 767. In what seemed like the blink of an eye, they appeared on the crowded street. The only difference was that they should be in an alley and some people would pass by from time to time. A gentle breeze blew over, causing Muzillion to become somewhat delirious. He blinked and blinked again. Suddenly, his legs trembled. I'm back in that terrifying world. Use your eyes to look carefully. This is the real world. I just brought you to a different place. Xiao Jin's voice broke his nervousness. She pointed at the fast food restaurant in the distance. Let's go, I often come here to buy food. Since we're out, let's go there and talk. Muzillion. He looked forward and saw a street sign not far away. He was familiar with the words on the street sign because he usually took this road when he drove home. In other words, he was now near his home. But he was still at home just a moment ago. Mu Qi scratched his head with all his might. He felt like his mind was about to collapse. Why did Xiao Jin grab him and directly change places? Xiao Jin took the lead and walked out. Muzillion, who was still in a daze, followed her with a dumbfounded look. After walking into the fast food restaurant, Xiao Jin ordered egg tarts and ice cream. When Muzillion was ordering, he asked the waiter, "Why do you like to eat this kind of junk food?" The waiter stared at him. He did not know where this young master came from. Is the food that ordinary people eat junk food? Xiao Jin snorted. I thought you would at least ask some key questions. Unexpectedly, Muzillion's first question was not on the point. He could not grasp the main point. It was no wonder that during the time in the Mountain of Laws, he was still able to act so carefree. After ordering, Xiao Jin found a corner and sat down. Muzillion seemed to wake up from a dream. He grabbed Xiao Jin's arm and shook it. How did you do it? It's you, right? You grabbed me and changed places. How did you do it? He shook Xiao Jin's whole body. Xiao Jin looked at him coldly. Muzillion embarrassedly retracted his hand. You have to understand my shock. Didn't you want to expose my true face? I'll let you see the real world. The fast food was quickly delivered. Xiao Jin put on a pair of disposable gloves and took a bite of the piping hot egg tart. Mu Qilian, this world is indeed not what you think it is. However, there are some things that are far away from you. Even if you don't know about them, they won't affect your life. Even if you know about them now, you don't have the ability to participate in them. Muzillion's eyes widened. You're enlightened. Xiao Jin, she closed her eyes and opened them again in an instant. It's not enlightenment. You've seen television dramas before. In this world, other than ordinary people, there are also some people with special abilities. The world that you and I entered together was a fake world, but it was a fake world created by a powerful ability. It's just that you couldn't tell because you didn't have the ability to tell. In your eyes, it was real. Muzillion was stunned. He felt that his whole family was stunned. No, only he knew about it in his family. He thought for a moment and realized the key. You have special abilities. Chapter 768. That's right. Xiao Jin continued to eat the egg tart. When I committed suicide last time, I awakened some abilities. I can see things that you can't see, just like how I said Xiangshan had high blood pressure and Jinming had myocardial infarction. Muzillion, why don't you go to the hospital and contribute to society as a detector? Xiao Jin. There's a reason why you get beaten up by Xiao Fei sometimes. Muzillion and Xiangshan were of the same origin. They were commonly known as trolls. Suicide can awaken an ability. Muzillion was shocked beyond belief. He looked at his hands and muttered to himself, then wouldn't suicide be, Xiao Jin, if you commit suicide, you'll be dead. When the time comes, I'll get Xiao Fei to pick a good grave for you. He placed his arms on the table and leaned to the side. Then why are you telling me this now? Xiao Jin looked up at him. Didn't you want to know? I didn't expect you to enter the mountain of laws. Since you've experienced all those things, you must have questions in your heart. I'm answering your questions. No wonder, no wonder, second brother always said that you were strange. Muzillion touched his chin. To be honest, at that time, I seriously suspected that there was something wrong with your brain. Xiao Jin, seeing that it was all in the past, Xiao Jin didn't want to lower himself to Muzillion's level. Muzillion continued to ask, what's your ability? He reached out to touch Xiao Jin's egg tart and was hit by Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin continued, I'm an array master. In this world, people with abnormal abilities are called spiritual readers. There are 3 types of spiritual readers. The more common ones are wizards, and the other are spiritual readers. Since you don't understand, I don't want to explain it to you in detail. You just need to know that I'm an array master. You were awakened by suicide. Muzillion still couldn't help but feel restless in his heart. Then I have already entered the mountain of laws. Don't tell me that I don't have the ability to awaken. Xiao Jin, no. Muzillion had grown up in a honey jar. If he wasn't born with it, there was basically no hope for him to awaken it. Him entering the mountain of laws was just an accident. Thinking of this, she asked, since you've been fired, what about Zhongyu? At this moment, Muzillion was immersed in the sorrow of his inability to awaken. We were expelled together. We're now at his house, but his house is also in the capital. As soon as Muzillion finished speaking, he received a call. Xiao Jin thought it was Zhongyu, but he heard a girl's voice on the other end of the phone. Muzillion's tone was not very pleasant when he answered the phone. I've already returned to the capital. You're here too. At this point, his voice suddenly became louder. What are you doing here? You have relatives in the capital? Oh yes, then it's fine. What does it have to do with me? I'm hanging up. After saying that, Muzillion directly hung up the phone. Xiao Jin asked, who is it? I met her in the army. She's a member of the female corps. Muzillion casually said, she said that she came to the capital. It's strange. She's still training recently. Why would she come to the capital? Xiao Jin, she suddenly pursed her lips and smiled, but in the end, she didn't say anything. Muzillion was now very curious. If it weren't for the mountain of laws, he probably wouldn't have accepted it so quickly. Now, he was pulling Xiao Jin to ask all kinds of questions. Chapter 769. Xiao Jin didn't discuss with him for long. Later on, when Muzillion saw Xiao Jin's ability, he started to sigh. At first, he thought that it was special for him to enter the mountain of rules, but now, it seemed like it was an accident. When the two of them were preparing to go home, Muzillion suddenly received a call from Zhongyu. Do you have time? I don't have time. Can you help me pick up my sister? Muzillion was stunned. Sister? Where did you get a sister? Why haven't I heard you mention it? Zhongyu, you don't know if you have time now. If not, then forget it. Yes, yes, yes. Muzillion and Zongyu weren't that close. Who asked them to go on a mission together and end up suffering together? Now, they were expelled together. They were really brothers in the same boat. Muzillion thought that it was just a matter of convenience, so he agreed. He originally wanted to go home and drive, but when he saw Qiao Jin, his eyes turned. Can you directly teleport to the airport? I haven't experienced enough just now. Let's do it again. Qiao Jin, which airport? Muzillion looked at the WeChat message sent by Zongyu and said the name of the airport. Qiao Jin reached out and stopped the car. I have time. I'll go with you. Muzillion. Where's the teleportation? Where's the teleportation? He wanted to experience the pleasure of disappearing in an instant. He didn't want to be blocked. However, Qiao Jin wasn't moved at all. Muzillion could only sit in the car with her and go to the airport with a sullen face. They arrived at the airport quickly. Muzillion received a description message from Zongyu. He said that he didn't have a picture and could only describe the other party's appearance and clothes. Muzillion and Qiao Jin waited at the airport for a while. Suddenly, an exquisite girl pushing a suitcase came out of an exit. When she saw Muzillion, her eyes lit up and she walked over. Brother Muzillion. When Muzillion saw her, he was also a little surprised and shocked. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly looked up and down at her clothes. After checking the contents of his WeChat to confirm, Muzillion was stunned. You're Zongyu's sister. Ah, yes. A bright smile appeared on the girl's face. Zongyu is my stepfather's son. We grew up together, and he's like a real brother. As she spoke, she also saw Qiao Jin beside Muzillion. He was a little surprised and a little hesitant. Brother Qilian, this is, Muzillion said casually, my younger sister. Zongyu's sister was suddenly enlightened. She happily greeted Qiao Jin, hello, Sister Qilian. Qiao Jin nodded and smiled. The person Zongyu asked me to pick up is you. Muzillion's face was a little awkward. If he knew it was this person, he wouldn't have come. So you're the one brother Zongyu asked to pick me up. Enchanting smiled very happily. What a coincidence. Muzillion, although Muzillion had been with a lot of girls, it was very obvious that he didn't like girls. He didn't seem to like Enchanting very much. However, the girl was passionate. Her love for Muzillion was obvious at a glance. Otherwise, she wouldn't be so happy when she saw Muzillion coming to pick her up. Muzillion, who had dated countless girlfriends, definitely knew. He felt a little awkward, but since he had picked her up, he took a taxi again to send Enchanting back. Zongyu probably didn't know that Enchanting and Muzillion knew each other. Calling Muzillion was purely an accident. Thinking of this, Muzillion felt a little depressed. Chapter 770. When Enchanting saw that Muzillion didn't seem to want to talk, she roughly understood. She turned around to chat with Qiao Jin. You're Qi Lian's sister. How old are you? Qiao Jin said softly, 20. My name is Qiao Jin. Oh. You're younger than me. I can call you Sister Qiao Jin. Enchanting looked natural and poised. Her posture was the same. It was obvious that she was a straightforward girl. Her words were quite sweet. Qiao Jin glanced at Muzillion and snorted in his heart. On the way, Enchanting kept chattering. Qiao Jin occasionally responded. Muzillion wasn't very willing to respond. However, when Enchanting asked again, he would still answer. It seemed that he was just impatient. Enchanting said that she was also in the army. However, something happened at home. Moreover, Zhongyu had also returned home. Therefore, she asked for leave to come back for a period of time. Muzilian responded half-heartedly. Xiao Jin thought that it was really rare for a scumbag like Muzilian to not like girls. Could it be that he liked men? Enchanting's house was very far away. They drove for an hour and a half before arriving at Enchanting's house. Unexpectedly, her house was in the most expensive place in the capital. It was in the alley. Although many of the houses here were old, some of them were very busy. When the car turned into the alley, they happened to see a person standing at the side of an arched door. He was tall and straight. He was wearing casual clothes. His skin was darker than Muzilian's, but he was handsome and strong. When Enchanting saw him, she immediately waved happily. "Brother." Zhongyu saw her and nodded. When he saw that there was another shadow in the car, he looked away. When Xiao Jin followed the two of them out of the car, he saw Xiao Jin and was a little surprised. However, when he thought that Muzilian and Xiao Jin were siblings, he wasn't very surprised. "Brother, I'm back." Zhongyu really loved this sister of his. He touched Enchanting's head. "I was busy just now and didn't pick you up. I asked Shi Lian to go. Don't blame me." "Of course I don't blame you." Enchanting smiled. Xiao Jin noticed that she was especially beautiful when she smiled. She was a girl who gave people a happy feeling. It didn't to say that she didn't meet Muzilian's aesthetic, so why didn't he like her? Although this was a personal preference, there had to be a reason for it. Xiao Jin couldn't help but be curious. When Zhongyu saw Muzilian and Xiao Jin, he nodded. "Thank you for picking up my sister. Sorry to trouble you. Why don't you come in and have a cup of tea before you leave?" Muzilian waved his hand and squeezed out a smile. No, Xiao Jin and I have something to do. We'll leave first. See you next time. Zhongyu didn't force them. Enchanting looked at Muzilian with a reluctant look. However, she still smiled at Muzilian and said, "Thank you, brother Muzilian and sister Xiao Jin. Take care. Goodbye. Xiao Jin. Goodbye." Muzilian was very straightforward. "Goodbye." When the two of them walked to the street outside the alley, Xiao Jin asked him, "You don't like Enchanting?" "Why?" Muzilian sighed as if he wanted to take out a cigarette from his bag and light it up. "The first time I saw her, she beat a man down with one punch. He was from the army. Do you dare to provoke such a tigress?" If he provoked her, he was afraid that he would be subjected to domestic violence in the future. Xiao Jin. Chapter 771. Xiao Jin had thought of many reasons, but she had never thought that it was because of this. She couldn't help but chuckle. "So there are times when you're afraid." Muzilian glanced at her. Who doesn't cherish their little life? Xiao Jin snorted. Because Enchanting's home was far from theirs, Xiao Jin decided to teleport back with Muzilian. Otherwise, it would be hard to explain. They teleported back to Xiao Jin's room. Muzilian was excited to see himself teleported back. He said that he would come back a few more times in the future. Muzilian opened the door and left. Although his view of the world had changed today, it didn't affect his optimistic outlook at all. When he opened the door, he saw Musachu passing by. Musachu turned around, and their eyes met. Muzilian didn't feel anything when he came out of Xiao Jin's room. Musachu asked, "Why did you go to Xiao Jin's room?" "To chat, of course." Muzilian looked at Musachu. "Brother, what are you doing?" Musachu said, "I was just casually asking." I thought you went to find trouble with Xiao Jin. Look at me. Do you think someone as innocent as me would find trouble with him? Muzilian felt that he had been severely hurt and discriminated against in this family. It was a pity that Musachu had already returned to his room with a sneer. Muzilian, he couldn't stay in this family any longer. When Xiao Jin woke up the next morning, she saw Mu Chi-chu, who was carrying his bag and preparing to go out early in the morning. Xiao Jin greeted him, and Mu Chi-chu whispered back, "Good morning." Just as he was about to leave, he turned back and asked Xiao Jin, "Does Duan Nianru have an older sister?" Xiao Jin nodded. "Yes, there is one." "Why?" Musachu pursed his lips. "Nothing." Xiao Jin glanced at him and did not continue to ask. After a while, Xiao Fei appeared again. Seeing Xiao Jin, he yawned and said good morning to her. "Good morning, Jin. What do you want to eat this morning?" "Xiao Jin, anything is fine. I'm not picky." However, as soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Jin's phone rang. She saw that it was He Yao. Before Xiao Jin could say anything, He Yao's anxious voice came through. "Xiao Jin, something happened." Her voice was very impatient. "Something big has happened. Our spirit group can't handle it anymore. Can you come and help us?" Xiao Jin directly said, "Address." He Yao gave him an address. Xiao Jin said to Xiao Fei, "Fei Fei, I have something to do. I won't be eating breakfast first." Xiao Fei was stunned. "Where are you going so early in the morning?" However, she could only watch as Xiao Jin left the Mu family. She did not know where he was going. Xiao Jin needed to take a taxi. She needed to know where to teleport. Otherwise, she would not know where to teleport. She had never been to the address He Yao gave her, so she could only follow the navigation. On the way, she called He Yao. However, the second call did not go through. She did not know if He Yao was in a place where the signal was blocked. Fortunately, there were no major traffic jams in the capital today. Xiao Jin arrived at He Yao's location in about half an hour. However, this was the outskirts of the capital, an ordinary residential area. There were not many people here at this time. Chapter 772. There were also psychics hiding in the dark. At this moment, the sky was bright, and Xiao Jin felt a strong resentment from the underground of the residential area. This resentment was somewhat familiar to her, just like the resentment she felt when she captured Shang Yishan. This resentment seemed to be temporarily trapped at this time and had not spread to the ground. Xiao Jin grabbed a psychic and asked her what was going on. The psychic's face was full of blood. At this moment, when she saw Xiao Jin, she seemed to collapse. "There's a wizard below, mutated. We can't stop it." Xiao Jin almost instantly thought of Shang Yishan. She did not kill Shang Yishan back then, but handed her over to the spirit group. The spirit group did not execute Shang Yishan after capturing her. She pondered for a moment, asked the psychic about the entrance, and went directly to the underground entrance. This ordinary residential building was just to hide the fact that there was a base of the spirit group below. However, the base here was different from other bases. It seemed to be used to imprison something. The entrance was in the stairwell of a house. Going up was an ordinary house. If she continued to go down and pressed on the wall, there would be a staircase leading down. There was a huge underground prison here. However, after she pressed on the wall and entered, she felt a strong resentment almost penetrating the wall. There was also a faint smell of blood in the air. There was a staircase leading down. When she reached the bottom and opened a door, there was a hole. At this time, many people were gathered in the hole. They were constantly using their abilities to block the door facing the hole. Even the formation master Ji Mengmeng was here. When she saw Qiao Jin appear, she was a little surprised, but not very surprised. Behind the door, there seemed to be a huge thing pounding on the door, trying to break out. Everyone's face was filled with fear. Even Ji Mingming's face was not looking good. He Yao saw Qiao Jin in the crowd and immediately shouted, "Qiao Jin." Many people heard it, but they were busy blocking the door and not many had the ability to turn around to look. Qiao Jin knew that it was about time when she sensed the resentment. She walked over and asked He Yao softly, "What happened?" He Yao's expression turned ugly. How was she going to explain this? She could only say, "Do you still remember Shang Yishan, who you caught and gave to us last time? She can materialize evil spirits. She has mutated and is now stronger. She is now trapped inside and wants to come out. But if she escapes, the entire imperial capital will be in trouble." "Qiao Jin, I am not joking." She enunciated every word with a solemn and frightened expression, as if she was talking about something terrifying. Qiao Jin listened to the huge thing pounding on the door. It was clearly a special metal door, but at this moment, it seemed to be unable to withstand it. Even with so many psychics blocking the door with their abilities, it was still beaten to such a state. One could imagine how terrifying the mutated Shang Yishan was. Qiao Jin licked her teeth with the tip of her tongue and smiled. "I want to know what you did to cause her to mutate. She is a demonized psychic. How many spirit seeds did you feed her to make her go crazy to this extent?" He Yao's expression suddenly changed. Fed a demonized spirit seed. Qiao Jin also knew why she did not kill Shang Yishan back then. It was because the spirit seed was hidden here. Chapter 773. She had always wanted to know where the spirit seed was hidden. Now, because of Shang Yishan, she knew. Of course, she could not let others know about this. Seeing how these people were struggling, she had no intention of interfering for the time being. Ji Mengmeng walked up and said to her, "Can you deal with this wizard?" Qiao Jin nodded. "But there will be a price." This price was not referring to the price she had to pay, but how much she could get for settling this matter. Qiao Jin did not need to think carefully to know that this was something done by the spirit group. They probably knew that Shang Yishan's ability was not ordinary, so they wanted to use her to create something. Now, they had overreached themselves. Qiao Jin had long said that Shang Yishan was demonized in a special place. Her ability was not ordinary from the beginning. Now that she was still locked here, it was probably because the spirit group had done something behind the scenes that caused Shang Yishan's ability to erupt further. Now, she was not just a high-level wizard. If she took another step forward, she would be close to Qiao Jin's level. She was also a demonized spiritual reader, a born evil person. Who knew how many people would die to appease this matter? Cause and effect were reasonable. No one would not care if she killed people. Qiao Jin was the only person to get rid of her. In short, the spirit group was courting death. Qiao Jin had no reason to clean up the mess for the spirit group. They had to be aware of how serious the consequences of this matter were. Ji Mengmeng bit her lip and said, "You can have anything you want, as long as you can get rid of Shang Yishan." She had already understood the situation when she came. Shang Yishan could not be dealt with at all. Even a formation master could not take more than a few moves from her. The few points under Ji Mingming's feet could be completely ignored by her, and the few demons she summoned were terrifying. They were clearly things that were filmed in movies, but in Shang Yishan's hands, they became real things. With her terrifying ability and bloodthirsty personality, this place was no different from a slaughterhouse. Once Shang Yishan was out, the next step would be the entire capital. Qiao Jin did not hide it from them. "I want the demonized spiritual seed, all of it here." Ji Mingming's eyes widened. What do you want that for? Qiao Jin glanced at her. This thing is not something that you should have. Now that you've caused such a big trouble, it's already not easy for me to clean up the mess for you. You still want to keep this thing. What, do you want to make more Shangyushins? Qiao Jin's smile was so gentle. Are you here to protect mankind, or to slaughter the whole world? Ji Mengmeng, these words were also heard by the other spiritual readers. They were a little frightened in their hearts, but they didn't know why. Normal adepts would never know what was hidden in this base. They didn't even know what kind of terrifying existence they were facing. Ji Mingming's face paled and she nodded. Okay. Qiao Jin, since you've promised me, I'll help you solve it. It doesn't matter if you can't make the decision. As long as you agree, I'll take the reward myself after I deal with Shangyushan. After saying this, she said to the crowd, there's no need for your abilities. Open the door and I'll go in. Someone said in horror, no, that demon is by the door. You can look at the surveillance over there, oh. Chapter 774. The surveillance over there clearly showed everything that was going on here. It was a huge ghoul. It had a terrifying body, rotten flesh all over, and it was holding a huge axe in its hand. Not only was it using its body to hit the door, but it was also using the axe to cut it. Based on the extent of its destruction, the door would not last long. Such a terrifying thing did not need to kill anyone. Just its appearance alone could scare ordinary people. Qiao Jin did not show any fear. She just said calmly, it's okay. If you can't come out, I won't joke with your lives. As she spoke, her fingers moved. The sky seemed to darken in an instant. A huge red butterfly appeared, and red lines bound the building in front of it. Its antennae were tugging at the red lines, as if it would not allow anything to leave its range. This was just devouring. Qiao Jin still had a rule in her hands. They could not see it. They could only see that Qiao Jin's pupils seemed to reflect red light. She spoke again. Open the door. The light voice lingered in everyone's ears. It seemed to make them quiver, but they miraculously calmed down. At least they were not as frightened as before. Ji Mengmeng ordered, open the door. She was an array master, so her rights were different. Although afraid, the spiritual psychic who controlled the switch swallowed his saliva and opened the door. In an instant, a huge axe came out from the slowly opening gap of the door. The ghoul's huge body also squeezed out. However, just as everyone was screaming in horror, its body touched the edge, but it seemed to be cut by an invisible blade, and it cried out in pain. In just a few seconds, its body was cut clean and turned into a pile of minced meat. It fell to the ground and soon vaporized and disappeared. To be honest, this scene was too visually shocking. Ji Mingming's face turned pale. Hiao hurriedly hugged Lan Xiaoni and covered her eyes. She was a space element and was very useful. They had no choice but to bring her here. But she was too young, so Lan Xiaoni still saw such a horrible scene. After all, she was just a child. She was scared to tears. Hiao covered her eyes in time so that she couldn't see more. She felt a little distressed. It's okay. It's okay. Fortunately, Qiao Jin came in time. When the others saw that the ghoul had turned into a pile of minced meat in the blink of an eye, their fear was finally appeased. But at the same time, some people had a more direct understanding of Qiao Jin's terror. To Qiao Jin, the things that they could not block with all their efforts were destroyed in the blink of an eye. Behind the door was a huge tunnel. There seemed to be something in the depths of the tunnel that was letting out faint hissing sounds. There was also an annoyed female voice. There was a limit to the number of evil spirits she could summon. Shang Yishan must be feeling terrible now that one of them had died. Oh. At the same time, she was becoming more and more violent. Behind the door, there were already corpses of spiritual readers lying on the ground. They had paid a heavy price for the spirit team's huge mistake. Last time, when the He early family took away a group of people, it was already a loss. Now, another group of people was taken away. This time, the spirit group's strength was completely damaged. Chapter 775. Someone couldn't help but cry out, if she could come, why didn't she come earlier? Too many of them had died. Those were their colleagues that they had known for a long time. Hiao looked at that person and said sternly, what does it have to do with her? Who was the one who did this? It's your lives that were lost because of what the higher-ups did. Now you're blaming others. Without her, you would have died here. She knew that these people were innocent, but she couldn't bear to see them talk about Qiao Jin like that. Qiao Jin obviously didn't know. She handed Shang Yishan to the spirit group because she followed the rules. She had already taken away Shang Yishan's demonized soul seed. Who knew that things would turn out like this? Who knew that the spirit group would do such a horrible thing? That person didn't dare to say anything else and cried. Too many of them had died. He had lost his head and was speaking without thinking. They were supposed to protect humans, but they didn't know the significance of what the higher-ups did. They created a terrifying killing machine, and now things had turned out like this. This demonized psychic had killed their colleagues and the people guarding this place. Once she got out, she would kill even more humans. All of this was caused by the spirit group. Qiao Jin heard that sentence, but she didn't care at all. She walked deeper into the tunnel, turned a few corners, and walked into the final room. She saw a few malicious spirits guarding there. Sitting behind them was Shang Yishan, who was full of smiles. There were corpses and remains beside her. She smiled happily and said, "You're here." She knew that she would meet Qiao Jin one day. Qiao Jin not only felt the demonized soul seed reappearing in her body, but he also felt more demonized soul seeds. The room she was in was a huge empty room with only a few simple pieces of furniture. However, there was also a television. On the television, there was a bunch of discs of malicious spirits. How should he put it? Some people wanted to die. Even if you were a god, you couldn't stop them. They were obviously trying to stimulate Shang Yishan's ability, which led to a disaster. They didn't understand at all how powerful a wizard who had surpassed the high grade could be. Who was the one who came up with the idea of using a demonized spiritual seed to nourish it? While Qiao Jin was deep in thought, she also slowly sat down. A chair automatically appeared behind her. How did the Rakshasa realm contact you? Shang Yishan was stunned. She stared blankly for a moment before giggling happily. What are you talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about. While they were chatting, the people outside could see and hear them. But now, they could only see Shang Yishan moving her mouth and couldn't hear what they were saying. When they saw the pile of corpses beside Shang Yishan, some of them twitched their mouths in extreme anger and despair. After Shang Yishan said this, a few malicious spirits suddenly moved. Their figures instantly disappeared at the entrance of the passage, but their target wasn't Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin looked at Shang Yishan and raised her hand to make a fist. The door to the hall closed instantly. The speed was obviously not controlled by a machine. Instead, it was like the door had been forcibly closed by some kind of force. A few specters appeared behind the door, but they did not rush forward immediately. Qiao Jin looked at Shang Yishan and said softly, "Answer me, and then you can return to the embrace of the Rakshasa realm." Oh. Chapter 776. The malicious ghosts did not rush out. The smile on Shang Yishan's lips stiffened. When she controlled the malicious ghosts to turn back to attack Qiao Jin, several red threads penetrated the door and shot in. The moment they passed through the malicious ghosts' bodies, they melted in just a moment. The malicious ghosts did not even wail. They turned into vapor and disappeared without a trace. Shang Yishan's eyes turned scarlet. In an instant, all the malicious ghosts were dead. This made her tremble. The Rakshasa world did not give you any power. How did you evolve so quickly? Qiao Jin paused. The reason I did not kill you last time was not because I was soft-hearted. You made me guess something. Just like that, they wanted to rush over through the humans again and again. She even suspected that the Rakshasa world really had some kind of power and wanted to rush over and attack the human world. Or was it not power? Shang Yishan's mouth twitched, but she quickly calmed down. She was wearing a white dress. When she calmed down, she even looked a little obedient. Qiao Jin. She smiled strangely. Isn't it good for you to cooperate with me? Qiao Jin lowered his eyes and raised them again. Those who want to cooperate with me are not ordinary people. And your strength is far from enough. Shang Yishan heard this obviously derogatory remark. Her face that had just calmed down turned scarlet again. She almost could not control herself and jumped up to kill Qiao Jin. Unfortunately, she really did not have this ability. Qiao Jin said, "Since you are not willing to speak, then you can only die." When he said this, Shang Yishan suddenly screamed and was forced to raise her head. Her body seemed to have melted in an instant, turning into a black vapor. It was like flowing black gasoline, viscous and incorporeal. The surrounding world changed instantly. Several huge demons flapped their wings. When they saw Qiao Jin, they hissed like snakes again. Their twisted faces were ferocious. After Shang Yishan's body melted, it seemed to have become one with them. A cloud of black gas was about to dissipate. Qiao Jin made the first move. The red butterfly appeared and let out a rare screech. It flapped its wings at the demon and swallowed the black gas in one gulp. The Abyss Devil's eyes were ferocious. They didn't dare to die, but they didn't dare to approach the red butterfly either. They only charged at Qiao Jin, letting out Abyss Devil roars. You must die. Qiao Jin smiled. Who doesn't know how to talk big? A piece of trash who would lose half his life just to send a message. Since the plan had failed, the demon could only reluctantly disappear. The surroundings instantly returned to its original color. The entire room was emptied, leaving only a pile of broken limbs on the floor. Looking at these corpses, she could not help but lightly sigh. Some people's desires were endless. For the sake of this desire, who knew how many lives would be sacrificed? The people standing outside the surveillance camera could only stare dumbfounded as Shang Yishan screamed and turned into ashes, disappearing without a trace. In front of Qiao Jin, the powerful demonized spirit reader that they were so afraid of was just an ant. The fact that she had died so easily made people even more fearful of Qiao Jin. The moment she got up, she turned her head. It was still that beautiful and exquisite face. For a moment, some people heaved a sigh of relief. They were afraid that when they turned their heads, it would be a face as ferocious as that of a monk. Chapter 777. When Qiao Jin walked out of the door, he saw a group of unfamiliar and fearful faces looking at him. Shang Yishan was obviously terrifying, but facing an unknown existence like Qiao Jin, they seemed to feel even more fear in their hearts. Even if they had experienced it countless times, no one had seen such a powerful force. Qiao Jin didn't care about this and just looked at Ji Mengmeng. I've already taken the things, you need to clean up the mess yourselves. Ji Meng nodded. She wasn't that old, but when she saw the tragic scene in the monitoring room just now, she almost cried out in pain. Qiao Jin was sent underground by He Yao. She hugged Lan Xiaoni, who had fainted from crying, and her expression was a little solemn and unsightly. Qiao Jin only said, "This isn't your fault, it's someone's fault." To know that a demonized spirit seed was used to feed a demonized spiritual reader, it was obvious that there was someone in the upper echelons who was incredible. This matter won't be settled just like this, someone has to take responsibility for this. He Yao sighed. So many people have died, and no one stands up to settle this, the spirit group will be finished. Because of a mistake, they paid such a huge price, letting all the spiritual readers know about a terrifying existence like Shang Yishan. As early as a few months ago, when Shang Yishan was captured, they did not find the demonized spirit seed. It was obvious that after being locked up here, she had conducted illegal experiments to create such a terrifying demonized spiritualist. If this matter wasn't handled properly, everyone in the spirit group would despair. This was a devastating blow to them, who maintained the stability of society. If they didn't want someone to take on this responsibility, no one could stop the demonized spiritual readers. It was also a disaster for ordinary people. After He Yao finished speaking, her expression was a little complicated. That Shang Yishan, was she killed by you? Sort of. Qiao Jin said, she was on the verge of losing her mind. It was just that it was taken away by the Rakshasa realm in advance, which meant that the spirit seed was stolen by her. He Yao nodded with a heavy heart. Thank goodness I didn't call Meng Qingyu over. Meng Qingyu was one of Qiao Jin's people, and she was an advanced wizard. If she came, she would definitely be called in to stop Shang Yishan. There was no way she could stop her. If she died in there, how would Qiao Jin feel? Qiao Jin thought for a moment. How much did the spirit group lose this time? He Yao's tone was heavy. We've suffered heavy losses. Our initial estimate is that no less than 30 spiritual readers have died. Including the previous incident, the spirit group can't take it anymore. There were only a few hundred of them to begin with. With so many of them dying all of a sudden, the spirit group was almost done for. Qiao Jin sighed at the dead person. Even she would not have thought that Shang Yishan would be locked up here for such an experiment, which would lead to such a disaster. But now, too many people from the spirit group had died. She suddenly remembered that Imo Jiang was an ancient array master. Her strength was not to be underestimated. What if she placed Imo Jiang in the same group of spirit array masters? Array masters seemed to have more power than normal wizards. Qiao Jin thought so. He Yao still had to deal with the aftermath. It all depended on who would take responsibility for this incident. This incident had a huge impact on the spirit group. The Zhong siblings took a long leave of absence to deal with the aftermath. Qiao Jin also received a call from Song Yanqing. There was a destructive attack on the spirit group. Were you the one who dealt with it? Qiao Jin was not surprised to receive a call from him. Yes. If I didn't go, not many people would have been able to deal with it. Mo Jiang could have done it, but she did not know the spirit group at all. Even if she knew, she probably would not have done anything. Chapter 778. Song Yanqing said, I've received some news. I'll tell you about it when we meet. Qiao Jin agreed. It was the weekend, so she didn't have to think of a reason. She went to meet Song Yanqing directly. When Song Yanqing saw Qiao Jin, his complexion was already very good. It was as if the injury that day was just an illusion. He didn't talk much. When he saw Qiao Jin, he said, after this incident, we found out that the spirit group has a very terrifying plan. It's called demonization. There's a member of the Wanyan family in the upper echelons of the spirit group. She's called Wanyan Yunhu. She's not from the same family as the one who targeted you previously. She has very high authority in the spirit group. She once proposed to conduct illegal experiments on demonized spiritualists. Her intention was to understand the difference between demonized spiritualists and ordinary spiritualists. They wanted to know why some people awakened naturally while others were demonized. It sounded reasonable, but the things he did were not so reasonable. The people involved in this plan were secretly integrating the demonic soul seed. As Wanyan Yunhu had a lot of authority, this matter had always been in progress. Everyone knew that the demonic soul seed was useless, but they had a special method to extract the demonic soul seed. It was very difficult to capture a demonized spiritualist alive. Most of them would die naturally after extracting the spiritual seeds. However, Shang Yishan was an accident. She was also a very rare high-level demonized spiritualist. At that time, Wanyan Yunhu was tempted. She locked Shang Yishan up for secret experiments to test her reaction. As expected, Shang Yishan demonized once again. After their experiments, she had a higher ability. Then, she discovered what happened later. When the incident broke out, they couldn't hide it anymore. They had no choice but to ask for help. Instead, they lost more people. When they realized that the situation couldn't be controlled, Hiao asked for help from Qiao Jin. Because they had been kept in the dark, they didn't know the specific reason. Wanyan Yunhu left the country before the incident broke out, which was yesterday. Right now, the spirit team is unable to contact her. We can totally suspect that she already knows that the situation is out of control and has gone into hiding. Song Yanqing sent a message over. When Qiao Jin saw Wanyan Yunhu's message, he fell silent for a moment. She was an extremely beautiful woman with the charm of a fox. However, after Qiao Jin had seen Mo Jiang, he felt that Mo Jiang was a cut above her. Qiao Jin said, "She's a formation master." Song Yanqing nodded. To be able to take control of the spirit group, she must have her own strength. If it wasn't for this incident, we might not have been able to find out. Right now, the Wanyan clan has completely collapsed because of her. The other clans are all pointing fingers at the Wanyan clan for an explanation. The power that the Wanyan clan has maintained in the spirit group for so long has completely collapsed. Things haven't blown up yet, so you can do whatever you want. However, what Wanyan Yunhu did was completely inhumane. If Shang Yishan, this scourge, was released, the entire imperial capital would be finished. The spirit group was pointing fingers at the spirit group. With so many people dead and the Wanyan clan still being in power, the spirit group would be finished. The members of the spirit group weren't ordinary humans and didn't follow the rules of ordinary humans. If they didn't give up power and someone was demonized because of it, no one would be able to shoulder the responsibility. Right now, the higher-ups had already issued an arrest warrant for Wanyan Yunhu. If she was caught, she would die. Chapter 779. Qiao Jin paused for a moment. How did you know so much information all of a sudden? This was all from the spirit group. She remembered that the Song family wasn't involved. Even if there was an information network, this information shouldn't have reached Song Yanqing's ears so quickly. Song Yanqing lowered his eyes and smiled gently. Given the current situation of the spirit group, wouldn't it be unwise if I don't use my ability to arrange more people? Qiao Jin understood. He was a spiritualist. It was too easy for him to bewitch people. The members of the spirit group weren't all of one mind. Very good. Song Yanqing was in charge of gathering forces, while Qiao Jin planned to arrange people directly. Now, Yao was climbing up step by step. Being strong didn't mean that she would automatically be promoted. It also depended on her brain. There were still ordinary people in positions above her. The main reason was that it was convenient to manage, not that they were strong. As for those who were too strong to be controlled, there were naturally others to control them. If he arranged for Mo Jiang to be in the spirit group, TSK. This idea was really good. Of course, it depended on whether Mo Jiang was interested or not. Song Yanqing also happened to ask, "What is that Mo Jiang doing?" Qiao Jin casually said, "I can't afford to raise her. She's already preparing to become a star." Song Yanqing, he couldn't help but smile. "Do you need help?" Qiao Jin glanced at Song Yanqing. "If you're willing, give her some opportunities. She can become famous and earn money. The women beside me are all raised by her." Song Yanqing suddenly felt a little strange. "Why do you want to raise a group of women?" "Qiao Jin, I found them. They're all pitiful little girls. If I don't raise them, who will?" Song Yanqing, "If you don't have money, you can tell me." Qiao Jin, "I know, but I don't lack money right now." Song Yanqing, even if he gave Meng Qingyu and the others living expenses now, Qiao Jin was actually not short of money. After all, he was still earning extra money with his life. Song Yanqing could only smile and say, "Up to you." After talking with Song Yanqing and having a pleasant meal, Qiao Jin went to find Mo Jiang. Mo Jiang had gone to interview with several production teams because of Fan Jin's information. Unsurprisingly, because of her excellent looks, even if she didn't fit the role, she left her phone number with the production team. Especially when she was originally impatient, but the production crew was especially receptive to it. When Qiao Jin found her, she was having a meal with the director. The director looked at her with an apologetic smile. Mo Jiang was dressed casually and sat there as if he didn't want to talk to her. Most importantly, the director was very happy. The bootlicking was very realistic. When she saw Qiao Jin, Mo Jiang found an excuse to chase the director away and sat down with Qiao Jin to chat. Qiao Jin asked her about the progress of the audition. "Did you get a chance to act?" "Yes." Mo Jiang sat in her seat very casually. The two peerless beauties were in the same frame. Almost everyone around them looked over in amazement and couldn't bear to look away. "The agent that your friend recommended to me also wants to sign me. He went back to work on the contract. Other talent scouts are also trying to recruit me. I chose the second female lead role of a peerless beauty. I think it's very suitable for me." Qiao Jin, she suddenly felt that she had misunderstood the woman in the memories of the High Priestess. The woman in front of her was obviously very confident. Listen to the word choice. Chapter 780. Didn't I hear that the audition is very difficult? Why is it so easy for you? Qiao Jin ordered a cup of coffee. Mo Jiang looked at her seriously. "I'm better looking than those women. Why wouldn't they choose me?" Qiao Jin, that made sense. Mo Jiang was extremely beautiful. Most importantly, her beauty was seductive, and it was the kind of natural seductiveness that came without makeup. Just this point alone was very rare. Her beauty was strong and enchanting. Just by standing there, her excellent qualities were enough to beat the average actor with makeup. Of course, the director knew who to choose. Especially in the entertainment industry where pure beauties were rare. Of course, the director chose her. To put it simply, Mo Jiang used her beauty to commit murder. Qiao Jin didn't understand the rules of the entertainment industry, but he understood her beauty. Hearing this, he nodded. "Then act well. When you become famous in the future, you won't have to worry about money." "Of course." Mo Jiang blew on her nails. "I still have to help you support those two women." She remembered her accusation. No one would have thought that Mo Jiang entered the entertainment industry with such a ridiculous reason. Mo Jiang was quickly called away. She signed a contract with a manager and had her own management company. Everything happened very quickly. The next day, she even told Xiao Jin that she was going to act in a film. She also announced the news in the group. Meng Qingyu asked her to look at the other celebrities in the film crew, but she refused. Mo Jiang, why do you want to look at them? They're not as good looking as me. Just look at me. Meng Qingyu. Was she as thick-skinned as the Great Wall? Could she be so shameless just because she was beautiful? Of course she could. Mo Jiang vividly explained this principle. While talking nonsense with them in the group, Mo Jiang stayed in the film crew. Even though it was only her first day, countless people looked at her. First of all, she didn't have an assistant, but she was more arrogant than the protagonist. Moreover, she didn't like to talk to anyone. If someone greeted her, she would greet them if she was happy, but if she wasn't, she would pretend that she didn't see them. The key point was that Mo Jiang had not found this person in the entertainment industry. He could not find any information about her at all. She even got the role of the second female lead. Many people seriously suspected that she had brought money into the cast. One had to know that in the industry, the popular ones had more say than the non-popular ones. Mo Jiang was a soldier who came out of nowhere and was so arrogant. It could only be suspected that he had a backer. What they didn't know was that Mo Jiang not only had no backing, she didn't even have any experience. However, she had an advantage that others didn't have. She remembered her lines very well and never forgot them. In addition, the second female lead role was just a pretty face to begin with, so her acting was too convincing. Many of the fans of the other celebrities who came to visit her on set became her fans on the spot. If you were good looking, you could really do whatever you wanted. A she. Someone was calling someone's name. Mo Jiang looked over in boredom. Suddenly, she saw a familiar side profile. It was a handsome young man's face. He didn't look very old, and his whole face was filled with the youthfulness of a youth. She felt that it was a very familiar face. But she didn't know him. She only stared at that person, and an inexplicable feeling of sadness welled up in her heart. Suddenly, there was a shrill and sharp cry in her mind. High Priestess. This cry actually gave Mo Jiang a headache. It was as if a tendon had been pulled. She couldn't help but shake her head, feeling that something was wrong. Chapter 781. Who was the High Priest? Mo Jiang was a little confused. When she woke up, Xiao Jin didn't tell her anything, only letting her come into contact with the real world. Because she had lost her memory and didn't know anything, she didn't care about these things. But now that she saw this guy, she felt that something was wrong. What's wrong? Her manager was standing by her side. A few days ago, when she saw this great aunt's face, she had signed the contract in a fit of anger. Now that she had served her, she realized that she was really a great aunt. She made full use of the advantage of her face and couldn't take any loss. At this moment, seeing her man in a daze, she looked over curiously. You're looking at Xie. Mo Jiang looked at her manager. Xie. The second male lead. He has scenes with you. Her manager pouted. Your idol debuted. He wasn't very popular before, but he changed his career and became an actor. You haven't seen him before. Mo Jiang tilted her head, an indescribable feeling in her heart. How would I know them? I don't even know the male and female leads. Her manager, this little ancestor, was really. She wanted to enter the entertainment industry, but she didn't even know the most popular people. She looked at everyone in the dark and even needed him to remind her. She was really a little ancestor. As they spoke, Xiaxi walked over. When he saw Mo Jiang, he smiled and nodded. "Hello, Sister Mo Jiang." His tone was warm and gentle, giving off a warm and sunny vibe. It also had a youthful straightforwardness. Xiaxi's idol debuted. Although he wasn't very old, he was only 20 years old. Mo Jiang's debut was set at 21 years old by her manager. She was older than Xiaxi by a year. There was nothing wrong with him calling her sister. Mo Jiang glanced at him. Xiaxi seemed to react and greeted her sincerely. "My name is Xiaxi." He was famous and had fans. Logically speaking, he shouldn't treat a newcomer like this. However, Xiaxi had always had a good reputation in the crew. Many fans came to see him. He was a very young star. He was also tall and slender. With a good face and a good figure, he had a certain level of fame in the entertainment industry. When he was an idol, he did not have many fans, but all of them were loyal fans. As long as this TV series was a hit, he would be able to rise to the next level. Mo Jiang just nodded and didn't have any intention of chatting with Xiaxi. Xiaxi was very tactful and left after saying goodbye. You can't always ignore everyone. Those who don't know would think that you're famous all over the universe. Mo Jiang, what's the rush? It'll happen sooner or later. The manager was speechless. Although he said that, Mo Jiang took a picture of Xiaxi and sent it to the group. Mo Jiang, picture, is he good looking? Meng Qingyu, compared to my idol, he's just a so-so. Yang Qiulu, yes. Mo Jiang, Meng Qingyu, who's your idol? Meng Qingyu, picture, this is it. He's handsome, right? Coincidentally, she sent a picture of the male lead in Mo Jiang's crew. Mo Jiang, so ugly. Meng Qingyu, you can say that I'm ugly, but you can't say that about my idol. Are you blind? Xiaxi is just a nobody. How can he be compared to my idol? The fans' anger came from this confusion. Qiao Jin, seeing that Qiao Jin had come out, Mo Jiang at her again to ask if he was good-looking. Qiao Jin, just a so-so. In her eyes, Song Yanqing was already a stunning beauty. Of course, other men were just a so-so. This was the truth. Mo Jiang only clicked his tongue. Meng Qingyu scolded Mo Jiang for bullying the weak and fearing the strong. She didn't even dare to fart when a big shot said that he was just a so-so. Chapter 782. Mo Jiang then looked at Xiaxi in the distance. She just felt that this person looked very familiar. But she couldn't remember where she had seen him before. It felt like a long time ago. Whenever she thought about it, she would have a severe headache. In the midst of the headache, it felt like someone was constantly crying out, "High Priestess." She didn't know if that High Priestess was her. After shouting for a long time, she felt a dull pain in her heart. It felt like there was always something left undone. Mo Jiang, get ready to start filming your scenes. The director's voice came from the other side. Mo Jiang gathered her thoughts and suddenly said to her manager, "Help me ask for Xiaxi's WeChat." The manager was shocked. "What are you doing?" The male lead was better looking than Xiaxi. It wouldn't make sense for Mo Jiang to suddenly want to do something. She couldn't reach the unspoken rules. Could it be that he wanted a second lead like Xiaxi to do something to her? Mo Jiang didn't say anything else and just said, "Go quickly." The manager was speechless. Alright, maybe Mo Jiang had taken a liking to him. Although he didn't understand why a super beauty like Mo Jiang would take a liking to Xiaxi's plain face. To others, Xiaxi was a teenager. To many people who had seen stunning beauties, he was indeed too plain and didn't stand out. The manager resigned to his fate and still went to ask for Xiaxi's WeChat. Xiaxi was a little surprised, but he still happily gave his WeChat to Mo Jiang. Seeing a stunning beauty like Mo Jiang, no one could easily suppress themselves. Even Xiaxi himself couldn't help but have a good impression of Mo Jiang. He thought that Mo Jiang's manager had come to ask for his WeChat. However, in the next few days, Mo Jiang was only filming on set and didn't take the initiative to add him. This made Xiaxi a little disappointed. Qiao Jin had been receiving He Yao's information for the past few days. Now, he was investigating Shang Yishan's matter. The culprit, Wanyan Yunhu, had run away. According to the news, she had disappeared overseas. The local Chinese spirit group was trying to catch her. Quite a few of her subordinates were found to be responsible for this incident. After this incident, the spirit group was once again in turmoil. In order to appease the people, she promoted a few other small group captains who had no connections to the spirit group to manage the group. She wanted to reduce the feeling of being controlled by the major families, and He Yao was one of them. Her promotion was a good thing, but when she thought about how her position was exchanged with the lives of so many people, she sighed. Although the fault did not lie with them. The truth of the matter was with Wanyan Yunhu. Only by capturing Wanyan Yunhu would they know what was going on. However, Qiao Jin was still keeping an eye on one thing. Now was a crucial moment of unrest. She wanted the array masters to contact Mo Jiang. This was why she had suggested that Mo Jiang become a celebrity. Those array masters had seen Mo Jiang before. They knew that Mo Jiang was a female corpse. Mo Jiang had publicly announced that he could contact her separately. Qiao Jin had tried to bring Mo Jiang back. Of course, she had done the same. However, she couldn't let the spirit group know. They knew that Mo Jiang was very dangerous. They would definitely think of ways to stabilize Mo Jiang. Joining the spirit group was the best choice. However, an opportunity soon came. Mo Jiang was on the hot search list. Qiao Jin didn't expect that she would learn how to operate the entertainment industry so quickly. She even had a scandal with someone. This scandal was from the person she had asked in the group that day. It was said that it was about a little idol called Xiaxi. Chapter 783. Xiaxi hadn't seen Mo Jiang add him on WeChat for a few days. It was as if he was possessed and lost his mind. Every day, when he was free, he would check his WeChat friend requests over and over again. He didn't know why it was like this. It was probably because Mo Jiang was unusually good-looking. He had been in the industry for so long and had so many beautiful female celebrities. He had also dated other female idols in private, but they all broke up due to pressure. At that time, he didn't show any signs of heartache. Only Mo Jiang made him feel lost. Especially when he was acting with Mo Jiang. He had never acted before, but when he saw Mo Jiang's eyes, he felt that the other party's emotions were too lively, and he couldn't help but be immersed in it. In addition, he was acting as the second male lead who had a crush on Mo Jiang. After a few days, Xiaxi couldn't tell if he was really immersed in the role. Sometimes, he couldn't even look at the lines. He knew that this was scary, and he also knew that Mo Jiang would definitely become famous. How could such a beautiful person not become famous? His agent seemed to have noticed something, and whispered, "If you can be a couple with her, it's not bad." At that time, Xiaxi was tempted. But later on, he laughed bitterly. He was just a small idol. Mo Jiang was rumored to have joined the cast with money. Would anyone like him? But then he remembered that the other party's agent had asked for his WeChat on the first day. He couldn't help but have a little fantasy. Maybe there was. After another day of filming, Xiaxi returned home and opened his WeChat as usual. Suddenly, he became excited. It was Mo Jiang's WeChat. It was a simple selfie with a name, Mo Jiang. Xia quickly clicked on the request. While he was still hesitating about what to send, Mo Jiang sent a message. Are you in the room? Xia, yes. Mo Jiang, come out and barbecue. Seeing this, Xia was shamelessly tempted. He knew that with his status, there would be a storm if he was photographed outside. But now, he seemed to have been bewitched. Without caring about anything else, he changed his clothes and went out to look for Mo Jiang. They really just ate barbecue and chatted. It was also in a very ordinary place, but it was still taken by someone. Coupled with the fact that he was somewhat famous, the photo naturally became a trending topic. The management company struck while the iron was hot and made the news explode. Of course, his fans were furious and wanted to clarify the matter. However, when they saw Mo Jiang's appearance, they were stunned. Passerby, what the fuck, the guy has been cultivating for 800 years, and he found such a peerless beauty. The netizens were just gossiping about the scandal. However, when Meng Meng and the others from the spirit group saw the photos of the woman on Weibo, they immediately blew up. Meng Meng was one of them who loved entertainment news the most. When she saw Mo Jiang's face, her face turned pale. She immediately called the others. Isn't this the female corpse? She's revived, she's really revived. That day, they clearly saw that the ancient formation master in the stone coffin was Mo Jiang. It was hard to find another person with Mo Jiang's appearance in 1,000 years. It was impossible for them to look alike. The news was quickly sent to them. Mo Jiang had only appeared recently. There was no information about this person before. The reason was simple. If she was so beautiful, there was no way she would not have left behind any traces. Without a trace, it could only mean that she had suddenly appeared. The formation masters all shivered. An ancient formation master from 400 years ago had been revived. Chapter 784. Not to mention Meng Meng, even Lu Ren and the others were shocked. They had seen the ancient array master with their own eyes that day and remembered his face clearly. Later on, it wasn't that they didn't send people back, but there was a collapse in that area and they couldn't find it. They had thought that the female corpse had been sealed underground. Even if it had not decayed for thousands of years, there should not be such a ridiculous thing as resurrection. Now, the truth had hit them in the head. The female corpse had indeed been resurrected and there were rumors about her being with an idol. If it were not for this, they would not have found out. The Array Masterling group was not very calm and immediately sent Meng Meng, who looked the least threatening, to test it out. She could disguise herself as a fan and get close to Mo Jiang. Mo Jiang was now filming. When the news of the scandal came out, the people in the crew were a little surprised. This quiet beauty who no one liked to talk to had been won over by Xia. Some people secretly admired Xia, while others felt that it was strange. Of course, most people thought that the two of them were a couple. In the entertainment industry, it was very common to make a couple. As long as they could increase their fame, they could do whatever they wanted. Although Xia was an idol, he did not look very compatible with Mo Jiang. This kind of beauty was obviously not something a small idol like Xia could handle. Xia did not deny anything. Last night, the two of them had gone out to eat barbecue and had a simple chat. Mo Jiang did not like to talk, so they did not even talk about the important things, let alone interact with Xia. However, they were photographed together. The company struck while the iron was hot and said that they were a couple. Xia did not object. When Mo Jiang came to the set the next day, his expression was normal as if he did not take the news on the internet seriously. Ji Mengmeng mixed in with the fans and came to find Imo Jiang. Ji Mengmeng was wearing a lowly outfit and looked very eye-catching. Among the fans, even the male lead of the crew came to talk to her. If it was a normal girl, she would have jumped 8 feet high in excitement. Ji Mengmeng did not react and just stared at Imo Jiang. Imo Jiang seemed to have noticed Ji Mengmeng's gaze. He raised his eyes slightly and turned his head, curling his lips. He was just a small array master. She did not even have the desire to make a move. Xiao Jin's phone happened to send a message. Meng Qingyu was the one who made the note for her. Big boss, an array master to you. If she says anything to you, you don't have to deny it. Get close to her and mix into her organization. Mo, why? Big boss, this is a must-have. Mo Jiang, she raised her head and glanced at Ji Mengmeng. Her manager was still nagging in her ear that she was not suitable to be a couple. He wanted to clarify the news. After all, Mo Jiang was taking a different path now. He did not have to be a couple with a small idol like Xie. It did not look too compatible. Mo Jiang did not have any thoughts and said, just do whatever you want. Then he got up and walked towards Ji Mengmeng. When Ji Mengmeng saw Mo Jiang walking over, her hands clenched into fists. Her heart was beating so fast that it was like a drum. She was not even this afraid when she faced Xiao Jin because Xiao Jin was mysterious and looked high and mighty. However, she knew about Mo Jiang. He was resurrected from a sealed female corpse underground. Just this point alone was too scary. Chapter 785. She was an ancient array master. If she wanted to make a move, Ji Mengmeng did not know if she could stop her. Little girl. Mo Jiang walked over and looked at Ji Mengmeng. Why? Do you like me? Why are you staring at me? Ji Mengmeng was speechless. This ancient array master's skin was unusually thick. However, Ji Mengmeng could only smile. Yes, I'm your fan. Yo, I haven't even officially debuted and I already have fans. Mo Jiang smiled. The people around saw Mo Jiang talking to Ji Mengmeng and found it strange. Mo Jiang did not care about other celebrities, but he was willing to talk to a fan. She was also looking at Mo Jiang. He looked over with a complicated gaze. Although Mo Jiang did not say anything about the news, he did not talk to Xie either. They even had a barbecue last night. Xie did not mind turning the act into reality. Unfortunately, Mo Jiang did not say anything. He did not dare to say what he was thinking. It was only a few days. He was afraid that Mo Jiang would think that it was superficial. Ji Mengmeng smiled and said, I fell in love with you the moment I saw you, Sister Mo Jiang. Mo Jiang narrowed his eyes. You fell in love with me when you saw me lying in the coffin. You have good taste. Mo Jiang's words were equivalent to a full admission. Ji Mengmeng's face turned pale with fear. This was not how a fan should behave. Mo Jiang said again, all right, look at how scared you are. I won't do anything to you. Am I going to destroy the world after being revived? Why are you so scared? Ji Mengmeng was at a loss for words. Who would not be afraid? A 4,000-year-old ancient array master, an old demon with unknown strength, who would not be afraid? Ji Mengmeng wanted to call Xiao Jin and beg him to come over. However, Lu Xian and the others suspected that this Mo Jiang was released by Xiao Jin. At that time, she had the idea of taking Mo Jiang away. Although she stopped later, it was hard to say for sure that she didn't use other methods to bring Mo Jiang back. Now, she even revived Mo Jiang. Unfortunately, they didn't have any evidence, so naturally, they didn't dare to ask Xiao Jin for help. Mo Jiang said in a low voice, "I don't have any intentions at all. I just want to focus on filming my show. I want to be a celebrity. If you're not my fan, you should leave as soon as possible." Ji Mengmeng, why did she want to be a celebrity after climbing out of her coffin? Was this how an ancient array master should behave? Ji Mengmeng was at a loss. She watched as Mo Jiang walked back. Some fans came over and asked enviously, "What did she say to you?" They had been here for a few days, but they hadn't seen Mo Jiang greet any of her fans. Some fans thought that she was acting like a big shot. But why would she act like a big shot when she wasn't even famous? She just had a big temper. The key was that no one in the crew dared to target her. Sure enough, beautiful people could do whatever they wanted. Ji Mengmeng stayed here for a while and watched Mo Jiang film for a long time. In the end, as Xiao Jin had expected, they couldn't find a suitable way to deal with this ancient array master. If they fought, they probably wouldn't be a match for her even if they worked together. So, after filming, Ji Mengmeng could only find Mo Jiang and ask her if she wanted to join the spirit group. Of course, she wasn't trying to rope her in right away. Instead, she wanted to introduce her to the array masters of this world. She had to let her know that this was no longer the era of the past. As far as Xiao Jin was concerned, this chess piece had already been buried. Chapter 786. Of course, Mo Jiang's appearance wasn't completely without suspicion. Lu Xian immediately called her to ask if she was the one who released Mo Jiang. Xiao Jin felt that he was being unreasonable. "Why do you think so?" "I wanted to bring her back that day, but you didn't agree." Lu Xian felt that Xiao Jin's words weren't right, but he had no evidence. He could only grit his teeth and admit it. What if she's harmful to the world? Who knew what this resurrected ancient array master wanted to do? Xiao Jin chuckled. "Then it's fine. Continue to pay me. I'll deal with her." Lu Xian was speechless. After hanging up the phone, Xiao Jin saw Mo Jiang's message on her phone. She said, "Okay." It was quite trendy and even used English. After a while, it would probably become a god. Xiao Jin curled her lips into a smile. She was currently in class. After class, Xiao Jin went to the school cafeteria alone. Halfway there, she was stopped. The person who stopped her was a shy boy. He was of average height and was slightly taller than Xiao Jin. He had delicate features and wore glasses. He held a letter in his hand. When he saw Xiao Jin, he wanted to stuff it into Xiao Jin's hands. Unexpectedly, Xiao Jin did not pick up the letter at all. Hence, the letter fell to the ground. The boy raised his head to look at Xiao Jin. When he saw the other party's cold and clear eyes, his face flushed red. Xiao Jin. He picked up the letter and wanted to pass it to her. "You can take it back and read it." Xiao Jin was very straightforward. "If you have something to say to me, you can say it now. If it's a love letter, I don't need to read it." After all, she was the school's new campus belle. It was impossible for no one to pursue her. However, most of them asked for her WeChat and contact details or confessed in person. Of course, they were usually rejected before they could say anything. If she didn't like others, she wouldn't give them any illusions. Naturally, she rejected them mercilessly. It was rare to see someone delivering a letter, but it was not unheard of. This was the third time. The boy's face turned even redder because there were already people around who were watching the show. Although everyone was not surprised to see the school belle being confessed to, it was inevitable that they would find it funny and curious to see such a confession scene. "I heard that Xiao Mu doesn't have a boyfriend either." Xiao Jin, who said that? I have a boyfriend, but this is my private matter. I don't have to announce it to the world, right? I can only apologize to you for liking me. I don't like you. I hope you can find your own happiness. She didn't speak coldly, just politely. This was how confessions were. If you didn't like the other party, then don't leave any hope behind. Xiao Jin didn't like people easily, so it wasn't difficult for him to reject them. Ah. The boy was so embarrassed that the back of his ears burned. He was a little ashamed. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Seeing that Xiao Jin had rejected him, he took the letter and left. However, he still looked a little upset and sad. After all, he was sadder than anyone else when he heard that the person he liked had a boyfriend. Just as Xiao Jin was about to leave, she suddenly felt a peeping gaze behind her. That gaze was gloomy and cold, like a venomous snake peeping at her. She didn't even turn her head and continued walking to the cafeteria to eat. Chapter 787. Anonymous, breaking news. The campus belle has a boyfriend. Anonymous, really? Anonymous, someone confessed to the campus belle on the spot today, and then the campus belle said that she has a boyfriend. Damn, I'm wondering what kind of immortal can win the campus belle's heart. Anonymous, I haven't seen the campus belle with other boys in school. Is it outside of school? The news that Xiao Jin had a boyfriend caused a stir on the school forum. No one expected that the campus belle, who looked like an immortal, actually had a boyfriend. Since the start of school, she had been staying in school or being picked up by the Mu family. She even rarely interacted with her brother. No one had seen any news of her being in contact with boys. Now she actually had a boyfriend. Everyone must be curious about who her boyfriend was. Of course, there were also insiders who vaguely said, "Don't ask. He's an immortal like her." Sure enough, immortals should be matched with immortals. They're a match made in heaven. The news that Xiao Jin had a boyfriend quickly spread throughout the campus. Of course, everyone should have known this news long ago. They were just a little surprised. Song Yanqing's identity was still well known in the capital. Some people in school knew about it, while others didn't. However, everyone didn't seem to be very shocked that Xiao Jin was really with Song Yanqing. After all, those who knew about it knew that the rumors about their relationship had been spreading for a long time. Now, it was just a matter of time. Mo Jiang and Ji Mengmeng reached an agreement. Xiao Jin was about to go home after a week of classes. However, before she left, the school sent a message to the students to be careful when they went home. A few streets away from them, a female student went missing in another major university. Until now, no one had been found. Because no body was found, they didn't know whether the female student was dead or alive. Therefore, even Xiao Jin's school began to be vigilant. If a female student went missing, it might be a criminal activity. It was undoubtedly a terrible thing to have a criminal in the vicinity. However, for most students, this was a matter far away. They didn't take it seriously when they went home. The Mu family sent a driver to pick her up. When she left the school gate and was about to get into the car, her phone suddenly vibrated. It was a message from a stranger. The number on it showed that it was overseas, but the content was a little creepy. "You're so beautiful. If you're made into a sculpture and preserved forever, you'll definitely amaze the world." Xiao Jin, she looked at the message and curled her lips. Then, he took a screenshot and sent it to the group chat that Mo Jiang and the others were in. Mo Jiang, ? Meng Qingyu, boss, what is this? Young Qiulu, it looks a little scary. Xiao Jin got into the Mu family and C family's car and sent a message. It's Jin Jinyo, someone must be targeting me. Judging from his tone, he might be a murderer. Meng Qingyu, ? Yang Qiulu, ? Mo Jiang, ? Meng Qingyu, isn't it good for this big brother to be alive? Mo Jiang, boring. He didn't know why someone would target Xiao Jin. No matter who he was, he could only sympathize with him from the bottom of his heart. Xiao Jin released the array to sense, and a few dozen meters behind her, there was a person hiding in a corner, staring at her. When he saw Xiao Jin looking down at her phone and getting into the car, he showed a sick smile on his face. Chapter 788. When Xiao Jin returned home, he heard Xiao Fei mention this matter. I heard that there was a case of a missing girl near your school. She looked worried. Xiao Jin comforted her. It's not in our school. But it's still close to your school. Xiao Fei said, speaking of which, they're wondering if the culprit committed the crime again. A girl went missing a year ago. She was also a university student. They haven't found the culprit yet. This matter is still being investigated. Xiao Jin was curious. It's been a year and they haven't caught the culprit yet. Xiao Fei shook her head. That's why I'm guessing that the culprit committed the crime a year ago. This is too rare. This is the capital. There were surveillance cameras everywhere. It was unbelievable that there was no trace of a missing girl. Xiao Jin thought of the person who sent the message and followed him today. He asked, are there any clues before those girls went missing? No. Xiao Fei shook her head. The news was from a year ago. I didn't pay much attention to it. According to them, they were all very pretty girls. She glanced at Xiao Jin and shuddered. Jin, you're so pretty. You have to be careful. Ask the driver to pick you up after school. If anyone looks for you, don't go out alone. Do you understand? Xiao Jin saw Xiao Fei's worried face. He didn't want to tell Xiao Fei that she had received a message. He didn't want Xiao Fei to break down on the spot. There were people committing crimes every day in this world. Xiao Jin couldn't take care of everything. However, if the person who targeted her was really the culprit, it would be a good thing. Xiao Jin also checked the internet. A year ago, 2 girls did go missing. Their photos were also posted online. However, there was no news until now. At that time, there was an uproar. Now that a year had passed and the news of the missing girls spread, some people dug up the 2 cases from a year ago and asked if it was the same case. For a time, some people were still in a state of panic. In the group, Meng Qingyu suddenly sent a message. Meng Qingyu, a female student went missing from our school. A year ago, another one went missing. Now, the school suspects that the 2 cases were done by the same person. They asked us to stay on campus. I won't be back for a few days. Mo Jiang, are you afraid? Meng Qingyu, what's there to be afraid of? Even if it's the school's request, I can't be an exception. Yang Qiulu, then be careful. Meng Qingyu, don't worry, it won't be tied to me. She was now a high-grade wizard, and most people would not even be able to get close to her. This kind of missing person case was usually a common criminal, and it was not the spirit group's turn to worry about it. Meng Qingyu did not plan to care about it, and only did what the school asked of him. Big boss, the missing girl is from your school. Meng Qingyu, yes, why did you notice it too? Mo Jiang, you felt it. Big boss, yes. Meng Qingyu. Meng Qingyu, what do you feel? Can you kindly tell me? Why can't I understand what you're saying? Mo Jiang, some things don't come to the battle sorcerer for no reason. Most likely, the murderer who targeted her and the suspect in the missing girl's case are the same person. Meng Qingyu, Big Boss shock. JPG, Young Qiulu, really? Then isn't Miss Xiao in danger? Mo Jiang, who do you think she is? The one in danger now is definitely the murderer. The two of them. Chapter 789. Mo Jiang was right. Formation masters were born with this instinct. If she was targeted, it would not be for no reason. If she was really targeted by a murderer this time, it meant that it would eventually lead to something. As for what it was, Qiao Jin did not know for the time being. Even if someone was targeting her, Qiao Jin did not take it seriously. Instead, the person who sent the text message became even more aggressive and sent Qiao Jin a photo. This photo was taken in a corner. It looked very far away and the photo was not very clear. However, one could still see the delicate face of the girl in the photo with her cheeks lowered. Other things could not be seen clearly, but she was full of fairy aura and had a special charm. This photo was of Qiao Jin. And it was a photo of her in school. In other words, the photo was taken from the school. Someone from my school. Qiao Jin could not help but wonder what kind of sin Yanhui University had committed. Why was the feng shui so bad? The angle of this photo was obviously in the school. Besides students, there were also staff members in Yanhui University. It was not impossible for someone to come in from outside the school. If it was an ordinary girl, she would definitely be scared half to death. Someone was following her, taking a photo, and sending a creepy text message, but she did not know who the other party was. She would probably be scared out of her wits. Unfortunately, Qiao Jin was not an ordinary girl. She even had the leisure to share the photo with Song Yanqing. When Song Yanqing saw the photo, he immediately thought that it was taken by someone else. He replied, "The angle is good. The face is not clear, but the mood of the whole photo is very good. It was Jin Jinyo. This was taken by someone who might be preparing to kill me." Song Yanqing, he called, and there was a slight doubt in his tone. "What's going on?" "Qiao Jin, I don't know. There was a case of a girl going missing near my school, and then someone started to target me. They even sent me a strange text saying that they wanted to turn me into a sculpture. Now, there's even a picture of me. I guess they met the legendary psychopathic murderer." Song Yanqing said helplessly, "Ordinary people?" What he meant by ordinary people was whether the other party was a spiritual reader or not. Qiao Jin replied, "That's right. Otherwise, we would have been targeted by the spirit group long ago. It was precisely because they were ordinary people. With so many crimes being committed in the world every day, the spirit group and the police station would definitely have their own division of labor and would not intervene in the cases of ordinary people." Since it was an ordinary person, Song Yanqing was not worried at all. However, not being worried and knowing that the other party was targeting Qiao Jin were two different things. He muttered, "I'll find out. It'll take half a day." Qiao Jin said, "No, I just want you to take a look at the photo. Most people wouldn't target me for no reason. There must be something wrong with this case that's attracting me. I'm going to let nature take its course." Song Yanqing laughed and said, "Are you waiting for him to kidnap you?" Qiao Jin said, "It's not that I can't. If he was really a murderer, he was carrying the lives of others behind his back. It was fine if he didn't meet him, but if he met him, Qiao Jin planned to be a good citizen of society and get rid of evil for the people." Song Yanqing sighed and said, "Since that's the case, it's up to you." There was helplessness in his tone. "You still have to be careful. I'll help you investigate this case." Qiao Jin did not refuse this time. "Okay." After hanging up, there was a knock on Qiao Jin's door. Chapter 790. She opened the door and saw Xiao Fei standing outside, looking worried. Jean, something happened to young Master Ji Sikai. Let's go and take a look. Him. Xiao Jin raised an eyebrow. What happened to him? Xiao Fei said, I'm not sure. I heard that he got into a car accident today. Fortunately, he was protected by bodyguards and was fine. He was just injured and had to go to the hospital. Your Grandpa Ji just called. It's only right that we go take a look. Let's go. Grandpa is waiting outside. Xiao Jin pursed her lips and nodded. It was strange that Ji Sikai got into a car accident. After all, he was the young master of a big family and would definitely be well protected. Now that something happened, it was probably an accident. She went downstairs. Muzilian and Musichu were both there, and Mu Xiangshan was also waiting. The family was only missing Mu Jinming, and they would be able to stay together. They got in the car and rushed to the hospital. In the car, Muzilian and Xiao Fei talked about Ji Sikai's car accident. He was fine, and they were still investigating the cause of the accident. It was said to be an accident. When they arrived at the hospital's VIP ward, many people must have come to see young Master Ji. The Mu family didn't have a chance to enter. They first saw Ji Pingan, who was talking to someone outside. Seeing them, Ji Pingan hurried over. After all, his granddaughter was here. Mu Xiangshan saw him and asked, Is Sikai okay? He's fine, he's fine. Ji Pingan's expression was still relaxed. He just had a small injury and was sent to the hospital for treatment. It's not a big problem. He'll be discharged in a week or so. Mu Xiangshan nodded. That's good. God bless him. Ji Pingan nodded and looked at Xiao Jin and the others with a smile. Why don't you go see Sikai later? There are too many people now. As soon as he said that, someone walked over and said expressionlessly, Young Master Sikai needs to rest now. Thank you for your kindness. If there's nothing else, please go back. This did seem like something Ji Sikai would do. If too many people came, he would unconsciously feel annoyed. Most of the people left tactfully. Xiao Jin did not know these people. Anyway, some of them even called Mu Xiangshan and Xiao Fei before they left. They were all in the same circle. Xiao Jin and the others didn't leave because their connections were in place. Ji Pingan directly brought them in to see Ji Sikai. Not everyone had left the ward. Ji Sikai's Xiao Jin's father, whom Xiao Jin had never seen before, was also there. Surprisingly, Shang Yiran and his sister, Xing Jiaobai, were also there. Xiao Jin still remembered that they were Ji Sikai's brother and sister. Ever since the incident last time, she had not paid attention to these two people at all. Now that she saw them here, she took another look at them. Xing Jiaobai looked at Ji Sikai with an aggrieved expression. Shang Yiran lowered his head, probably because he did not want to look at anyone. He was still leaning on crutches, and his limp was very obvious. Ji Sikai, who was lying on the bed, casually laid with his hands behind his head. He was wearing a hospital gown, and he didn't look like a patient at all. In front of his bed, a slightly handsome middle-aged man was looking at him and saying something. When they went in, they happened to hear a scolding. Brother and sister came to see you out of the kindness of our hearts. What's with your attitude? I haven't settled the score with you last time. Look at Iran's leg. If it weren't for seeing them come in, he bitterly stopped talking. Chapter 791. This man was Ji Sikai's father, Ji Huai, the eldest son of Ji Pingan. He was now in charge of the Ji family's power and wealth. It was obvious that Ji Sikai had inherited Ji Huai's looks. Although he was handsome, his face was full of flirtatiousness. It was obvious that he had been a playboy when he was young. Shang Yiran and Xing Jiaobai were the best proof. The gloominess in Ji Sikai's eyes when he wasn't smiling was very obvious. When he saw that the Mu family had arrived, he turned his head and cast a glance at them. Instead, he raised his pillow and propped himself up, half sitting on the bed. Mu Xiangshan led the way in and greeted Ji Huai before asking about Ji Sikai's well-being. At this moment, Xing Jiaobai also saw Qiao Jin. She bit her lip awkwardly and lowered her head, not daring to look at him. After all, after her identity as an illegitimate daughter was exposed, she didn't dare to behave strangely in front of Qiao Jin. If her identity as an illegitimate daughter was exposed, she didn't know what her classmates would think of her in a university like Yanhui. However, Qiao Jin didn't pay much attention to her. Muzilian and Musichu also stepped forward to show basic humanitarian concern for Ji Sikai. Although they weren't on good terms, at least they knew each other. Especially now that Ji Sikai was Qiao Jin's elder brother, he was more related to the Muzilian and Musichu brothers. Qiao Jin glanced at Shang Yiran. Ji Sikai, who had been listening to Mu Xiangshan, sneered. I told you, my car accident wasn't an accident. If I find out who did it, I'll take his life. Every word of this sentence seemed to be laced with ice shards, making one's hair stand on end. It wasn't strange for him to say this. What was strange was that he looked directly at Shang Yiran. Shang Yiran lowered his head and didn't look at Ji Sikai. No one could tell what he was thinking. This time, Ji Huai was so angry that he was about to have a heart attack. You've seen the surveillance footage at the scene. Your car accidentally skidded and collided with another car. Even the driver was interrogated several times. You still suspect that someone is trying to harm you. Do you have paranoia? The relationship between the father and son was so bad that they actually quarreled in front of outsiders. Ji Ping and immediately said with a sullen face, Ji Huai, what are you saying? When Ji Huai saw Ji Ping gone, he didn't know what to say. After all, Ji Pingon was an elder. Ji Pingon then looked at Ji Sikai, Sikai, don't worry. If someone really instigated it, this matter will definitely be investigated thoroughly and you will be given an explanation. For now, you should take good care of yourself. Actually, Qiao Jin also felt that Ji Sikai's suspicions weren't without reason. Shang Yiran even wanted to attack the Mu family because of Ho Wan. It would be strange if he didn't have any thoughts when Ji Sikai broke his leg. In his heart, he must have wanted Ji Sikai to die, but because of his awkward status, he couldn't do anything. Ji Sikai had a reason to suspect him, but Shang Yiran didn't seem like someone who could do such a thing. Ji Sikai listened to Ji Pingin's comforting words and replied with an indifferent mm. Just then, another person walked in from outside the door. Qiao Jin turned around. It was Lu Xian. When Lu Xian saw Qiao Jin, he also paused for a moment, but didn't say anything. Seeing that Lu Xian had arrived, Ji Sikai lazily said, Grandpa Mu, thank you and your family for coming to see me. But I don't have anything else to do. Right now, I have some matters to discuss with my people. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.